Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, May 27th, 2024. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note the starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. A warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, delegations, observers who will participate in this meeting regardless of whether they are physically in attendance in the council chambers in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the Council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and or unacceptable behavior and or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum. Over the course of the coming meeting, you can see that all councillors are in their chairs in the chamber in Listowel. Let us move to item 5 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol, at this time I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. On this occasion, I have received a notice ahead of the meeting from Councillor Andreessen. Let's set the inputs here for you so that you can speak. Councillor Andreessen, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg and Council and all the members of the public. I was absent at a May 6th meeting, and it's come to my attention that even in Councillor's absence, we are required to declare pecuniary interest. So on the May 6th meeting of 2024, there was item 15 of our closed session, which pertained to United Housing. And I'm declaring pecuniary interest on this item because I am the chair of the North Perth Community Committee for United Way, and that's part of the Perth Huron United Way group of projects. So as a consequence, I would not have participated in that, as well as the confirmatory bylaw, which is 17.1. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else wishing to avail themselves of the opportunity at this point to declare a potential conflict of interest? All right, I'm not seeing anyone, so let's move forward. My role as chair prompts me to manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda. We usually do have some participating remotely by web conference. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conferencing technology's text chat function. If technical difficulty arises for remote participants, I will advise, and we do have Simon available tonight to help. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, we have an amendment received today pertaining to our meeting, and I'm going to invite the clerk to speak to the amendment at this point. Clerk Carr.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you tonight, I am proposing that the agenda be approved as amended to add item 8.3, a delegation from Jillian Smith of MHPC Planning on behalf of Macomb Developments related to agenda item 9.2.2, and to renumber the public meeting items as 8.4 and 8.5.
Thank you, Clerk Carter. So we have a changed resolution from what was in our package as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved as amended to add item 8.3, a delegation from Jillian Smith of MHPC Planning on behalf of Macomb Developments related to agenda item 9.2.2, and to renumber the public meeting items as 8.4 and 8.5. Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move forward then to item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant Council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 14 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting and a special council meeting that was held in between now and then. Councillors, anything to extract here or any corrections that you'd like seen made to the minutes? Councillor Rothwell, welcome tonight. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Good evening, members of council, staff, and public. Item 7.8, please. The Perth County Regular Council Report dealing with the initial review of Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, and the draft provincial planning statement.
Okay, thank you. So item 7.8, anyone else with an item they'd like to extract? All right, I'm not seeing any, as is our usual custom. I'll call on Councillor Rothwell to pick up on his query. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd and council. This is a report that the county's manager of planning services, Andrew Hackler, presented, and I believe it underscores some of the issues that we've talked around this council table about, and specifically the reversal of some of the provincial legislative changes dealing specific with Planning Act issues. And as the report states, there's considerable amount of uncertainty for municipalities, posing many challenges to various aspects of land use planning. And I believe that County Council did accept the recommendations in this report, and I believe they're speaking on behalf of all member municipalities when they're doing that. And in particular, I think I want to focus in on the lot creation in prime agricultural areas, which is a proposal, and this was to allow potentially up to 2 additional residential units, which is fine in and of itself, but the legislation was going further to potentially allow for the severance of those 2 units, which goes, again, contrary to the policies in the current official plan, and certainly well-held farmland preservation issues. So certainly I support the recommendations and County Council's resolution on that, and I believe that the time frame has passed for submitting comments, so we'll rest on the fact that Perth County Council did underscore the recommendations, or accept the recommendations of the planning manager, and hopefully the province of Ontario sees the wisdom in such changes that are being proposed, and we look forward to hearing that resolution in due course. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. I haven't seen the actual letter or submission document at this point at the county table, but I'm sure that that was submitted in a timely fashion with the concerns that were raised and covered in that. And I continue to see certainly public media coverage about this issue as well, that there's some fairly grave concerns emerging from the changes that we're seeing. All right, anyone else prompted at this point to extract anything from the consent agenda, or shall we consider the resolution? All right, let's move forward then. The resolution as follows: that consent item 7.1 to 7.14 be received for information, and the minutes of the May 6, 2024 regular council meeting and the May 13th, 2024 special council meeting, I'll find my words, be adopted. Can I call for order? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstead. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. At this time, I propose that we move to item 8 on our agenda. We will now consider delegations from those with interest in the council's business or authority. I'll remind the delegations that in accordance with this council's procedural bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes per delegation is permitted, and that includes both presentation time and providing an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. Delegation is to present on the topic declared on the submitted request for delegation forms, and deviations from the topic are generally not acceptable to the chair or this council. As always, we expect respect and courtesy, which inherently includes not using the names of those who have not consented to such use. As item 8.1, we are joined by staff from the County of Perth who work jointly with North Perth on matters of accessibility. Welcome to Tyler Sager, Manager of Legislative Services and the County Clerk, and Rachel Cannon, Legislative Services Coordinator and Deputy County Clerk, who will present the 2023 Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update. To our county friends, who I see at least one is remote, the floor is yours, and welcome to our meeting.
Excellent. Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, and through you to Council. You've taken a little bit of my introduction away, so that's great. You know who I am, and I'm joined with Rachel Cannon, as you mentioned, and I'm sure she'll put her camera on here shortly. In addition to us, I believe in the gallery, we do have Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee member Mike Doan. So Mike is here to also support on behalf of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. Now, with that being said, before Council this evening is the Joint Accessibility Annual Status Update. This is a update that we do annually with respect to joint accessibility and accessibility throughout the county. This report highlights some of the ongoing accomplishments of North Perth, and it is in relation to the multi-year accessibility plan that came out last year. So this is an ongoing annual update. We do this once a year. And the multi-year is done in 2023 for 2023 to 2027. As mentioned, Rachel Cannon is present, and she has worked diligently with the North Perth members and staff to prepare this report, as well as ongoing support throughout the year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand the floor over to Rachel, and hopefully her mic and her camera does work. Rachel, are you able to jump on?
Great, I'm here. Can anyone hear me? Can you see me?
You're good.
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
Perfect. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and to council, thank you so much for having us. As Tyler said, we're going to keep it very short and sweet. We know you've got a busy night ahead of you. So without further ado, we'll just go ahead and jump right into the presentation. So if we want to head to the next slide. Great. Just a quick roadmap of where we're headed tonight. Very brief overview. We're not going to review the entire update with you. It is before you along with the formal report. And if you have any questions for us, we're happy to take those at the end here. Next slide. All right, just a reminder of why we're here tonight. So in the legislation through the province of Ontario, the AODA, under the IASR standards, we are legislated to have an accessibility plan that has to be updated at least once every 5 years. You may recall we did our roadshow tour last year with the whole accessibility plan. So that was for the next 5 years, 2023 to 2027. Next slide. And the subsection of that legislation is that we are here tonight to provide an annual update. So we're also required by legislation to put together that annual update, collate all that information, and sort of report on how we're doing with regard to that joint accessibility plan. So that's what this is. Next slide. Great, a really high level overview. We won't go through all the bullets here, but just a reminder of what we handle at the county level in terms of accessibility. A couple of the points that we like to highlight on this slide, providing committee support for the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. You may have a member in the audience there, Mike Doan, who is a Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee member. So we do all the administration for that committee and manage all of their initiatives and activities. And then, of course, we're always happy to be a point of contact for any accessibility concerns, questions, anything that anybody needs at the lower tiers, or of course, departmentally, we are available. Next slide. All right, so last year, these were some of the highlights that we saw coming out of our 2023-2027 full plan. In terms of trends and highlights, these were just sort of the threads that we pulled out of different information that everybody had reported into us in terms of things they were looking at over the next 5 years. So we're looking at things like communication, education, diversity and inclusion, looking at accessibility through an age-friendly lens with an aging population in Perth County, and of course, continuing to remain a community leader in terms of our accessibility status. Next slide. All right, we're going to jump right into some county-specific accomplishments and goals, and then we'll move into more North Perth-specific ones as well. Again, just a couple really brief highlights. If you want to read all of the goals and all of the accomplishments, you can go and check those out in the full update. In terms of accomplishments 2023 at the county, of course, many of you know facilities and public works have been very busy over the last year and moving into this year. Last year, they completed the installation of an AODA compliant elevator into the courthouse, the beautiful historic building that we work in. They also completed an installation of a fully accessible universal washroom on the second level there as well. So it's kind of just around the corner from the elevator, right at the St. Andrew entrance. In terms of other departments, legislative services, we worked diligently on developing some recruitment and training materials for our JAC, ensuring that they were onboarded and up to date with the new committee term. As well, we provided a couple different training sessions that focused on alt text and then also AODA training requirements. Next slide. Okay, moving into 2024 and beyond at the county level. Communications is working with legislative services to remediate the entire website. So we're doing a full-scale remediation of all the content on our website. Of course, as you all know, or most of you will probably know, the facilities and public works teams are very busy completing renovations on the 5 Huron building just beside the courthouse there as well. Of course, keeping accessibility top of mind. And finally, Archives is continuing their digitization project for all kinds of historical newspapers from the area, which is just going to increase the overall accessibility of those newspapers to the public and to anyone accessing them at the archives. Next slide. All right, moving into North Perth specific accomplishments. So these were notable accomplishments that we pulled out of the update that were provided by your staff. So just a few things to note here. There was an accessibility workshop put on by Sawchuck Accessible Solutions, which is great. We've worked with Julie Sawchuck as well at the county. She's awesome. The library has been using all text in all of its online materials. Ramps and push button door installation improves access for program rooms and the playground at one of North Perth's childcare centers. And customer service microphones were inspected and adjusted for clearer audio and better customer service in terms of accessibility. And next slide. So the goals for 2024 and beyond, again, reported by your staff to us. So staff are looking at investigating the purchase of a tablet or another device for translation purposes to eliminate language barriers between staff and residents. Looking to develop implementations, processes, and policy to reflect both short-term and long-term in your transportation master plan. Looking at additional pedestrian crossings, Wallace Avenue North Corridor, and other areas as well. And then finally, the library is also looking to purchase some technology to test documents and web pages to ensure accessibility there as well. Next slide. All right, and just like that, that concludes our presentation. We would just like to say a thank you to any staff, your clerk, our JAC, and anybody else who contributed to collating and providing the information for this update. It is a large document, and we, of course, do not take all the credit for putting it together. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sager and Ms. Cannon, for your presentation and all the work that you are doing to support both county and lower tier actions to improve our accessibility. Colleagues, questions or comments for the delegation? Okay, I think you're going to escape question-free. We do have a resolution to consider on this matter, colleagues, as follows. That North Perth Council receives the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2023 report, and that North Perth Council approves the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2023, and that staff be directed to post the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2023 on the North Perth website. Can I call for mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Again, to the county staff, lovely to have you with us tonight. Thank you for your time and for your excellent report. And we appreciate all that you're doing and invite you to carry on. Mr. Doan, thank you for attending tonight as well. All right, as item 8.2, we are fortunate to learn about the arrival of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library in North Perth. I don't know about you, but I'm staring at Dolly Parton at this moment. I've seen her in North Perth in the public spaces already, and excited to hear more about this project. This project is being introduced by the Friends of the North Perth Library, and we have a representative from that team tonight, or a few, including Stacey Ash, who is going to lead the presentation to council. Welcome, Stacey. Let me get the microphone and the cameras.
Thank you.
Push the button. There we go.
It's green. Okay. Mayor and Council, thank you very much for having us here tonight. I'm here representing Friends of the Library, joined by Candace Fitch and Pam Tarbush, two of the volunteer members of our small but growing group. I'm hoping this is a bit of a bright spot in your agenda tonight. We're really excited about the rollout of this program and the early success. So for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with the Friends of the Library, I've been a member of the Friends for at least 10 years now. It predates me by a long ways. This is a volunteer-led group. It's dedicated to fundraising and promotion on behalf of all three branches of the library, Listowel, Atwood, and Moncton. Last year, we undertook a bit of a planning exercise as a group. The group had, through pandemic, through the years, had really become quite small. We were very limited in what we were doing in the community, and we made a decision that we wanted to do more. We wanted to have a more active, more vibrant presence here in North Perth. We chose to focus on three pillars: youth literacy, skills literacy, and cultural literacy. Go ahead. I really want to talk tonight about youth literacy and why we chose that as an important focus. For those of you that spend time in our libraries here in North Perth, you know these are magical places. It's about so much more than just books. It's a point where people can connect, where they can learn, where you're introduced to new exciting ideas. But getting books into the hands of kids early is a fundamental building block for success. It really sets them up for success, not just in school, but in life. Down the road, it sets up a community to have a more skilled, more educated workforce. So it really is a long-term investment when you invest in early reading. I think as we started researching this and looking into the issue, one of the numbers that surprised me most of all was that 48% of Canadians do not have an adequate literacy level. I had no idea that it was that high, and inadequate literacy skills hold you back. They hold people back from everything they could, all the potential they could achieve. So we really wanted to do more to get high quality books into the hands of children. We started looking at a few options and started learning more about Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. We brought the cutout along with us because Dolly Parton is such an icon, but her contribution is so much more than musical. She's not just an entertainer. She is a philanthropist whose organization sends out 2.8 million books every single month to children in 5 different countries. This is something that when she speaks about it, she talks about being inspired by her own father in Tennessee and how his inability to read held him back. She talks about when she launched this charity, that her father said, of everything you've done in your life, all you've accomplished, this is the most important thing you've ever done. So a little bit about how it works. Imagination Library, the infrastructure, the mailing lists, the websites are all managed by the Dolly Parton Foundation. They seek local program partners, and that ranges from municipalities to states to counties to service clubs. The province of Prince Edward Island, for example, funds this program for every child in the province because they believe so strongly in the power of early literacy. Every child in North Perth, from 0 up to their 5th birthday, can register for free, no cost at all. They get 1 book every month mailed to their home. We pulled up the most recent Statistics Canada data. There's about 1,200 kids in that age range here in North Perth. A successful Imagination Library program typically sees between 25 and 30% of children in that community signed up. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more in a minute about where we're at already. The cost is roughly $50 per child per year. So $50 per child per year gets them 12 books mailed to their home, theirs to keep. And I think Helen is here with us from the library tonight as well, and she'll tell you that that's incredibly good value. That's value that we did explore whether we could do this more effectively, more efficiently on our own, and we can't. We can't match the power that that organization has. So for us, it's a matter of fundraising $30,000 a year to make sure those books get into the hands of people, of kids across this across this municipality, because we're targeting 50%. If a successful program is 25 to 30%, we think we can hit 50% here. I get asked a lot about how it works and what, do kids get different books? And, if you have 2 kids in the same house, do they get the same book? So this is just an example of the books that were sent out in May 2024. The books are chosen by a Canadian committee. There's a lot of Canadian content in the books. And they're sent out by year of birth. So a child born in 2019 got Mr. Mole Moves In, and a child born in 2023 got Counting with Barefoot Critters. When a child enrolls, the first book they get is The Little Engine That Could. That's Dolly Parton's favorite book. And the month they turn 5, they get Look Out Kindergarten, Here I Come as their graduation gift as they move out of the program. So we officially launched this program almost exactly a month ago. We were celebrating Canadian Children's Book Week. We had some local authors in, had some special guests join us, and we announced this program during the weekly story time that Sherry Burfeltz coordinates there. So very exciting day. You may have seen, we were really pleased to be supported by local media. There was some great local media coverage. We have a social media presence. Go on. So here we are 1 month later. 1 month later, and I just checked before I came down tonight, 404 children are enrolled. So we're already over 30% and well on our way. And that's 1 month in. $30,000 is our annual fundraising target. We are over 14,000 already. And more than half of that was a special gift from the Corey and Mallory Connors Family Fund, facilitated through the Stratford Perth Community Foundation. Incredibly generous, a really nice local donation, and I think touches on the fact that Mallory is not just an elementary school teacher herself, but her grandmother was also part of the Friends of the Library in the past. Todd, you mentioned that you've seen Dolly out and about, and we've really expanded our community presence. So trying to make sure that we're thrilled to be part of the Tastes of North Perth. We will be looking forward to having a presence at Teddy Bear Picnic, but we really want to make sure that we're out there helping connect people with this opportunity, but with the library as well. And we're also making sure that we're available to other communities. So when we started looking into this, we reached out to Howick with the Howick Optimists offer Imagination Library. And we also are making ourselves available to other communities that are interested in introducing this locally. We want to do this right, and we want to do it for the long term. Because this isn't, it's not a one-off, it's not about getting a book at home and it just living there. This is something that can connect across the community. So because we are friends of the library, we are making sure that there's a set of books going to our local libraries, and they will have complementary programming. If you've got small children at home, if you've been around small children, you know they like repetition and they like familiarity. I've joked before about the number of times I've seen The Lion King when my kids were that size, because you had to watch it over and over and over again. So when they have those books at home, we want them to see them at the library, out in the community, and other places as well, and to connect with them because it reinforces that basic learning. We'd love to look for opportunities, and I think this is an area where we could grow. How do we connect through other youth-focused organizations, through our local schools, through our daycares, through the Early On Center? I think there's real opportunity there to increase exposure. We're already partnering with local service clubs and want to continue to grow that. Again, tremendous success from private donors, both online and through the municipality. And we are in the early stages of planning an annual Keystone event that will be one of the major ways we raise funds and awareness. But again, it's building for the long term. Together, I really believe that we can put North Perth on the map as a leader in early literacy. Okay. I did want to just include a quick slide for those of you around the table that have younger children or perhaps grandchildren living in North Perth. I hope you've already signed up, or if you haven't, please do. We'd love to get to that 50% mark sooner rather than later. Donations, very easy to do online, as a one-time donation, as a monthly ongoing. I personally just set a monthly donation to come out of my account every month, because it's important to me, and I want to know that there's a number of kids across this community that are getting books every year, and I can support that. You can also go to the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Canada, enter your North Perth postal code, and that will get you to the donate or register pages as well. Okay. And with that, I would welcome any questions. I'll leave you with a lovely quote from Dolly that you can never get enough books into the hands of enough children. And if I could do it with the accent, I would, but I can't. So.
Get my microphone here. Thank you very much, Ms. Ash and team. It is certainly exciting to see this come to our community. I've certainly been aware of this initiative in the States over the years, and so it's quite thrilling. I see Councillor Ansett. I think you might have one who's in the age range. So I look forward to seeing that. Maybe there's some grandchildren around the table, Councillor Rothwell. So I'm tempted to invite Councillor Johnston to do an auction right now and see if we can raise you $1,000 just from the floor here. Anyway, I'll restrain my good instincts here. Questions or comments? Let's keep it brief, colleagues. Let's go with Councillor Andreessen first, Councillor Blazek second.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, I just want to thank you and the team for all your dedication with this program. The Friends of the Library have made a real difference, and it's really, really appreciated by the library board as well as our community. I have a question, though. So if I were to enroll a child and I wanted to pay for it myself, is that something that's possible, or is it only donations?
You wouldn't do it directly. The way I would do that so my grandchildren live in Huron County, so I've said I don't get to register them because they live somewhere else. If my grandchildren lived down the block and I wanted to offset the cost of their enrollment, I would just make an equivalent donation.
Okay.
But there's not one you can't, it's not a direct pay, but I would just make a donation. I said $50 a year is pretty close to the cost per child.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Thank you so much for what you do. I love books. My children love books. This is such an exciting program, and you're right, a bright spot in tonight's agenda package. I do have one question about this program. Is there by chance a book recycling element of this program to rehome books that kids who are utilizing this program have sort of aged out of?
There's not, but it's a great suggestion. It may be something that we can take back to the Friends table. There are lots of organizations that do annual book sales, things like that. Maybe that's an option or an opportunity for us. Great suggestion.
Okay, Councillor Richardson, let's find your microphone here.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, thank you so much for your presentation. It was wonderful to see that. Actually, I had the privilege of being in attendance that day that the actual launch had come out. I was thoroughly impressed with that, and even the amount of uptake that we've had from the local community for this program is nothing short of astonishing. So I have to thank everyone for that. Looking at this program and talking about listing it as a program, later in the meeting, I would like to request that if there happens to be an opportunity or an appetite of some description to have some small benefit of a municipal contribution, whether it be via a program, through library circulation, or something, even if it's a small token, because I think that's important for the youth of North Perth to be able to do that. So I can put it forward now that the staff report to possibly look at the possibilities of what can be done to do this. That obviously is in line with everything else that we do with our policies to do that. We would like to do that now. We're in section 10, I believe it is, to do that. So thank you. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Richardson. We'll pick that up again at the staff report stage. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Thanks very much for the presentation. You mentioned the Howick Cosmos, and I had the opportunity 2 weeks ago to be at a WaterWise event where we were taking in water sample bottles, which we'll be doing in Atwood here in the coming month. But anyways, we were sitting outside the library at the community center, and the library, people coming and going, and I was sitting right beside and working with some of the Optimist clubs, and they were very excited to talk about this project that they're involved in, and we're very excited to hear that the Friends of the Library was bringing it to North Perth. So I know that there's going to be a great collaboration between Friends of the Library and North Perth and Howick, and look forward to that in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. I think we'll cut it short there unless you'd like to sing 9 to 5 or something like that for us.
We'll try to practice for later in the year.
I might hold you to that. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's turn our attention then to items 8.3 and 8.4 on our agenda. These are public meetings under the Planning Act, and so for the purpose of executing these 2 public meetings. Sorry, yes? What am I missing? Okay, let me find the clerk's microphone. Yes, what am I missing?
We amended the agenda to add 8.3, the
8.3.
delegation from MHBC.
Okay, do we want that at this point or after the public meetings?
I would say do it as a delegation before the public meeting.
Okay, we can do that too. Yep, that's fine. So I have it documented here. We do have a delegation. We'll call it 8.3. I have it as 8.5, but that's good. We're joined by Gillian Smith of MHBC Planning, who wishes to present on item 9.2.2, related to a proposal by Macomb Developments for zoning bylaw amendment. I assume Ms. Smith, okay, is here. Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Please come to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Gillian Smith, and I'm a planner with MHBC, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Macomb Developments. At the May 6th Council meeting, Pierre Chauvin of MHBC gave a presentation on the proposed development, and from that meeting, there were a few issues that were raised by Council. So I'm here tonight to just provide a bit of an update as to where we're at with those comments. Specifically, those comments were related to the helicopter landing pad adjacent to the property, the feed operation adjacent to the property, and the matter of affordable housing. So with regard to the helicopter pad, Macomb has reached out to Orange, and they have expressed a willingness to cooperate and discuss with us to find a solution to that matter. I also understand that staff have reached out to the hospital to discuss their usage of that helicopter pad. So those meetings are going to be set in the short term, and we're happy to work with them to find a solution. Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have an exact resolution for that, but with a little bit more time and conversations, I think that we can find a solution for the draft plan stage. Regarding the feed operation, we've reached out to that property owner. He does not have an issue with the proposed development, and the proposed development will not impede on his ability to expand that operation if he chooses to. He did have one comment, and that was related to increasing the landscaping along the property boundary, and that's no problem. We're happy to include that as part of our development. In terms of the affordable housing matter, we've heard your comments, and we will be including an element of affordable housing in the plan. We don't have details on that at this moment. We need to discuss with staff to work out those details, but that is something that we're looking into and will be including going forward. So with that, I think that these are issues that can be addressed in the near term. We just need a little bit more time to discuss with staff and those third parties to find concrete solutions. But we've read the staff report that's included in your agenda tonight, and we are happy and agree with the recommendation before you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Smith. Questions from council on this matter? It is on our agenda a little bit later, so we have opportunity to speak about it. But if you have questions at this point, I'm happy to entertain them. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone taking me up on that offer. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for coming tonight. All right, let's turn now. Now, we'll get it right, the order here. Let's turn to our public meetings. We have 2 of them that are proposed this evening. The first is is actually, let's make sure we get the statements right here. So for the purpose of executing 2 public meetings under the Planning Act, I use my discretion as head of council to announce a recess that will last the duration of these public meetings. All right, let me turn to the right page in the book here. Welcome to what is a public meeting pursuant to an application made under the Planning Act for a proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with zoning bylaw amendment number Z-18, Z18-2023 by MHBC Planning Limited on behalf of 2467858 Ontario, Inc., related to property described as Park Lot 2, Plan 290, as in R243541 Wallace Ward, in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 1020 Walton Avenue North. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comments concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make verbal submissions during this public meeting or have made to this point a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. And I believe we have a sign-in sheet at the back of the room for those who are going to avail themselves of the opportunity to present this evening. At this time, I'm going to call for a summary of this application. This will be offered by Mr. John Bice, who is a planner, but maybe a plant, I don't know, a planner for the County of Perth. Mr. Bice, let me get the settings right here for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of council. It's good to be back. Haven't been here for a few months. I've been planning in West Perth, but it's good to be back nonetheless. So before you is application, it's actually 2 applications we're going to run consecutively with this zoning bylaw amendment public meeting. It's for official plan amendment number 225 and for, of course, the zoning bylaw amendment Z18-2023. So the property is located at the Red Star, as you see on the slide above, and it's 1020 Walton Avenue North. So this image is just to give council and members of the public kind of a general idea of the existing conditions on the site. It should be noted that the vacant property to the south has currently been developed into a single attached dwelling, so this aerial image is a little bit out of date. Nonetheless, this gives a general assessment of the site, being 42 meters along Walton Avenue and then 144 meters in depth there as well. So a little bit of a summary of the applications as submitted. First things I want to go into the official plan amendment, and that's to keep the subject lands within what's called the urban fringe designation in the Perth County official plan, and it's to add a site-specific provision to permit a residential development consisting of 19 clustered townhouse dwelling units. Perth County Council is the approval authority for official plan amendments, and staff are seeking North Perth Council's direction regarding the official plan amendment with the recommendation tonight. The public meeting for OPA 225 will be held on June 6th, and that will be at Perth County Paramedic Headquarters in Stratford. And the subject application at this time is only proposing to facilitate the form of development, density, and number of units. A site plan amendment and a draft plan of condominium, vacant land condominium, will be expected after the official plan and the zoning bylaw amendment, depending on their outcomes. The next application and the subject of the public meeting tonight is the zoning bylaw amendment application. This application proposes to rezone the subject lands, as you see here, from a rural residential zone to a special residential zone 5 or R5-21, and that's to permit the 19 cluster dwelling townhouse units and to add a site-specific provision to reduce the minimum rear yard depth requirement for a 2-story cluster housing dwelling from 7.5 meters required to 4.5 meters. North Perth Council is the approval authority for this zoning bylaw amendment. It should be noted that staff will bring back the zoning bylaw amendment, barring the outcome of the official plan amendment at Perth County Council. Again, the subject applications, both of them at this time, are only proposing to facilitate the form of development, density, and number of units. A site plan amendment and a draft plan of condo will be required after the official plan and zoning bylaw amendments, depending again on their outcome. So the provincial policy statement has a number of policies that outline intensification, infill developments, as this one is. Some items to note would be that the form of housing is considered infill and intensification. That is the form of the proposed development. The development also provides the area with a new mixture of housing types that is not typically seen in this area, as it's predominantly low density in nature. The proposal provides for an efficient use of the property for residential development, and this is to accommodate the expected growth anticipated by the Perth County Comprehensive Review. And this proposed development can be municipally serviced. Planning staff consider this proposal consistent with the provincial policy statement. So the Perth County Official Plan, urban fringe designation establishes that the use of the lands are for residential development, and that's permitted. So essentially, the Perth County Official Plan outlines that single detached dwellings are permitted in this on this site. The question that we are considering with this official plan amendment is, can or should the proponents build these 19 cluster townhouse dwelling units rather than a single detached dwelling that is currently permitted on the property? Some things to note as well would be that the proposed development meets the similar density requirements in the Perth County Official Plan for areas bordering listable. The density proposed with this 19 townhouse dwelling units is about 31.7 units per hectare, which is in the general guideline within the Perth County Official Plan for areas similar to this. These specific subject lands do not have their own density guidelines. However, similar areas on the outskirts of listable do, and they meet the density requirements for townhouse units. Again, I want to note the Perth County Comprehensive Review completed by Watson and Associates. This has indicated that listable needs 230 hectares of urban residential land to accommodate anticipated residential development over the next 25 years. The proposed application as submitted does not sterilize any prime agricultural land and is not considered urban sprawl. And it also provides an underutilized site, an opportunity to appropriately intensify to create a more complete community. Perth County staff believe that the proposed applications are consistent with the Perth County Official Plan. And finally, the North Perth zoning bylaw also needs to be assessed for the proposed development. The rural residential zone, again, similar to the official plan, only allows for new single detached dwellings. The question is very similar to the official plan amendment, is should the proponents develop this property with 19 townhouse dwelling units, or the current permitted use would be rural residential, would be a single attached dwelling. So those questions are very similar to the planning question that we're looking to answer at this time. The applicants have established that the provisions of the R5 zone can be established on the site, except for the rear yard setback requirement for a 2-story townhouse dwelling unit. This reduction in the rear yard is pretty technical in nature. as the functionality of the site, it is more in the lines of interior side yard. That has a 4.5 meter requirement anyways. So staff are pleased with the reduction from 7.5 to 4.5. And again, I want to just note as well that items such as building location, lighting, parking, accessibility, access aisles, privacy screening, fencing, garbage collection will all need to be addressed at the site plan stage, as that's the more appropriate stage of development to assess the technical nature of some of those items. Site plan approval with the municipality is needed in order to minimize potential impacts on neighboring residents and surrounding low-density uses. So notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act. We received 4 letters. They're all in your council agenda packages. I believe there was one added today. We can summarize those as well. If you have questions about those, we can go into those as well. There we go. This is an image that's taken of the property looking to the east. Essentially, it's 2 pictures that really showcase one viewpoint, as the frontage of the property was a little bit too wide for my camera. But it's, essentially going left to right is what you would see from the road, and currently there's an existing single detached dwelling there that would be proposed to be demolished with the new proposed development. Stormwater management pond is constructed to the north. This is an image of that pond looking to the north. It's something to note for council members and members of the public is that this stormwater management pond exists, and it's to the north. So the recommendation today is essentially to hold a public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment and for North Perth staff to recommend to Perth County Council to approve the official plan amendment. Also noting that we'll be back to address the zoning bylaw amendment at a future council meeting. Take any questions, or I could open the floor up to the public meeting. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Bice. I just want to check in with both you and the clerk that the council has in its package all of the documents, all of the correspondence and reports that have been received from any other agency or interested party, and that has been made fully available to us.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, that's correct. An additional item of correspondence from John Padfield was circulated to council via email this morning. All other letters of correspondence that we received were included in the agenda package.
Thank you. All right. So this is the opportunity for any in the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Bice. I think you can take a seat at this point to make comments, and you will be invited to do so in order. Certainly, you are asked to provide your name and contact information, and there is a contact sheet, I believe, on the table at the back of the room that we would appreciate you signing for the sake of official record of your participation in the meeting. And so it is my responsibility as part of the public meeting to call on those who are in favor of the application. Other than the applicant, this is your opportunity to speak. Are there any in the audience who are gathered who wish to avail themselves of that opportunity? Clerk Carter, are we aware of any that have expressed such intention for remote? Her answer is no. All right, this is the opportunity then for those who are opposed to this application to present themselves and speak to council. Are there any in the audience who wish to make avail of that opportunity to speak in opposition to this proposal? If so, please come forward. You can arm wrestle out there in terms of the order of those who will speak, but please step forward. I see some hands being waved. So yes, please come forward. Just identify yourself and where you are residing at this point, if you would.
Good evening. My name is Jason Gerber. I reside at 1012 Walton Avenue North, adjacent to the property in question. So I'm the White House in the picture. I'm here to express my strong opposition to the proposed rezoning and development of my neighbor's property. The proposed rezoning from a rural residential to a high density is completely out of character with our neighborhood, as the smallest lots in the area are at least 1/3 acre and many being much larger. The proposed development would cram 19 townhouses into a single property, which is a drastic and unacceptable change to the fabric of our community. Not only would this development be visually jarring, but it would also lead to a significant increase in traffic, noise, and congestion. Our neighborhood is a peaceful and serene environment, and this development would destroy that. The impact of on our quality of life would be immense. Furthermore, this development would set a dangerous precedent for our neighborhood. If we allow this to happen, we would be opening the door for similar high-density developments in our area. Our neighborhood will lose its rural residential character and become a dense urban environment. I understand that development and progress are important, but they must be balanced with the needs and concerns of the community. This proposal is a clear example of overdevelopment and disregard for the character of our neighborhood. I would also like to speak to the negative impact this will have on my property, being right beside it. People pay a premium price for extra space, privacy, and serenity, and this will ruin all of that, as I would have 9 neighbors on the north side of my property instead of just 1. I urge you to consider the long-term consequences of this proposal and reject the rezoning and development. Let us preserve the character of our neighborhood and maintain the quality of life we enjoy. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gerber. Who is next? Anyone else wishing to avail themselves of the opportunity at this point? Okay, I see someone rising at the back of the room. Come forward, please.
Hi, my name is John Padfield. I reside at 1021 Walton Avenue North. So thank you for the opportunity to speak for the parties compiling all of these documents. I think it gave us as a neighborhood a point of reflection and congratulate some well thought out proposals that were actually done on Walton Avenue through the recent development of Walton Avenue, as well as the proposed lands to the north that are designating a large component of that as proposed high density buildings, where it makes sense. Everybody knows the rules of the game from the outset. This is where high density is going. This is where it's expected, and people can build houses, raise families, and invest in their future, knowing what the rules of the game are, as the neighborhood has done so. And as I watched Mr. Gerber build his own house through all 4 seasons, sleet, snow, he was out there and doing that, and to have somebody come along and want to change the rules of the game after the fact seems categorically unfair. I trust my letter outlined a number of different issues, besides some of which haven't been addressed here, given the slope of Walton Avenue. I don't believe that lends itself to a high density exit from the property at all. Also having such small driveways and forcing people to back out onto Walton Avenue, frankly, at that hill is just a recipe for disaster. Unfortunately, on Walton, we will see continued development as the lands to the north begin to continue to be developed. Increased traffic will happen. Vehicles pick up speed there. This is just not the location for a high density driveway exit, as well as forcing people to back out of their driveways. I think MHBC laid it out very well, that the listable ward official plan notes residential development is encouraged to be of similar scale as existing developments. Again, residential development is encouraged to be that of similar scale as existing developments. As Mr. Bice highlighted, this is rural residential and urban fringe. This is not remotely of that. So the sight line of the property does pose existing issues, and especially with the 2-story development that is proposed, given the method on which they propose to develop it. I do understand that sight lines and, we can try to manage views and fencing and all of those different things at a later time. I think we also know a lot of these applications, once approved for 19, they're moving ahead no matter what. And so unfortunately, Mr. Gerber would then have 8 different houses whose second story looks now down directly onto his house. And there really isn't any reasonable way to avoid having that happen unless somebody's willing to force a developer to build a 25-foot fence up to cover off those second-story windows. So unfortunately, that does disturb his peace and enjoyment of all of his property. Yeah, I think that's the end answer. Just put high-density proposals where they belong. Then council has the opportunity to do that, to drive that with new development, to set out those proposals as they have done. I've seen the plan for the north end. It's well thought out between mixes of commercial, there's light industrial, and the majority of the housing is designated as high density. Everybody knows the rules of the game going in. You're able to design streets that are suited for that. You're able to design neighborhoods that are suited for that. That unfortunately just isn't the case here, and that simply isn't possible here. I don't see that there's a way around the grade on Walton, as well as forcing, unfortunately, Mr. Gerber to have 8 different houses that will now look down into his house. And frankly, I find it categorically unfair for people of the neighborhood that have built, have invested, have been longtime taxpayers to then have that hoisted upon them. And unfortunately, that does take away from his peace and enjoyment. There just really isn't a way around that. So thank you for your time. Oh, in my letter, actually, I think everybody in the neighborhood feels that way because everybody else signed the letter. So although not necessarily everybody will get up to speak, everybody in the neighborhood, I do believe we achieved 100% signatures. So this is not a unique opinion. Everybody feels the same. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Padfield. Any others wishing to avail themselves of the opportunity to speak at this point in opposition to the application? Sure. If you'd come forward, again, identify yourself and where you live. That's helpful. And for those who've spoken, don't forget to sign the register at the back of the room before you leave tonight.
Good evening. I am Matthew Reimer. I live at 1066 Walton Avenue, just a little further, I guess it's north down the street. And just this past year, I was fortunate to be able to build my own home for my family there. And we moved from downtown Listowel and thought this was a perfect spot to build larger property, raise my family. And so I've really looked forward to that. I've done that and enjoy it. But I just feel the proposed, the proposal for that property it's not conducive to the neighborhood in any way. I would much rather see, maybe a semi, like a nice condo semi, if that needs to be the case. But just the pride of ownership is definitely, you can see that going down the Walton Ave, the pride of ownership is there. I do want to highlight about 15, 20 years when my neighbors built, then there were certain requirements that they had to abide by, and they did. And so some of these homes quite possibly were larger than what they had wanted to. I believe it was 2,400 square feet that they had to build at the time. And these are outstanding citizens. They're very active in our community. And I just feel it'd be very, it wouldn't be honoring of them in any way if now we just allowed 19 homes across the street from what they worked so hard for, and they abided by all the laws. And so I just feel it wouldn't be very honoring to the neighborhood there. I'm just very happy to be a citizen of North Perth, and thank you for your time. Mayor Kaysenberg, Council, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Reimer. Anyone else wishing to avail themselves of the opportunity to speak at this point?
Good evening. I'm Bruce White, live at 1010 Walton Ave North. I'm directly south of this development. Part of my property abuts the property line. I am partly opposed to this proposal for the simple reason Walton Avenue North is not conduit to parking. And there's going to be there's only 3 guest parking spots on that property with 19 homes. When you take Thanksgiving weekend and stuff like that, there's going to be 77 cars parked on Walton Ave North. I have talked to the works of the foreman of Public Works, help me out here, Lyndon Couch, about a route for the helipad and the hospital. Now, I said to him, I said, if the ambulance leaves the Lisco Hospital and comes up Walton Street, they'll only have 2 stop signs, one at Davidson and Elizabeth, and one at Winston and Davidson. And they can go right and up Walton, and it's a straight line right through. If they go at the very end of Walton, 150 feet, which would be, no, 250 feet, which would be 100 meters, they could turn right, and they're right at the helipad. There's no fighting of high-density traffic on the main highway or anything like that. One of us could be in that ambulance heading for that helipad, and we'd be all caught up in traffic out here in Walton, on Wallace Street. And I really feel that you people have got to really sit down and think about this. I've been told several times on some of the proposed developments up there by Mr. Couch, well, your neighbors wanted it. Well, nobody come and talk to me, but there's 100% people have signed this petition against this development as it stands. Now, please, this is not in your backyard, but it's in my backyard. And I'm afraid, and I know it's going to happen, and I know how I'm going to handle it. There's going to be flower pots thrown over the fence onto my property, dead plants, stones, grass, and everything else. And that will be handled in my way. I do have a front-end loader. I can scoop it up, and I will take it around, and I will dump it right on their sidewalk and tell them I brought your garbage back. It will not be tolerated. I have proposed to Mr. Bice a 10-foot fence be erected on the property line to deter from having this done. And I think that should be done on the Hartung property too, because it'll be going over his fence if they can't throw it over onto me. That's all I have to say. I'm not in favor of this, but please, you people must have an open mind and think, what would it be like if you were living beside this development in your backyard? That's all I ask. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. White. Anyone else wishing to avail themselves of the opportunity to speak in opposition to this proposal? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands waving at me, so let's turn now. There's the opportunity for the applicant or the applicant's agent to speak at this time. I think Clerk Carter has advised that there is a remote connection here with someone who's willing to speak on behalf of the applicant. So if we can bring them in and have them introduce themselves, that would be helpful.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Kiesenberg and members of council. My name is Emily Elliott, and I am with MHBC, and we're the applicants in support of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application for 1020 Walton Avenue. And so I can speak to the applications this evening. And I'd like to just first start off by thanking Mr. Bice for his thorough presentation of the staff report. We've reviewed this and support the recommendations. Next slide, please. I'll try to be brief because Mr. Bice did cover a lot of the main points related to this. So this site is located to north of Listowel. It has an area of approximately 0.6 hectares. It has about 42 meters of frontage on Walton Avenue and presently contains a single detached dwelling. There are existing municipal services available to this site within Walton Avenue. And then north of the site, there is an existing municipal stormwater management pond and a draft approved plan of subdivision. Next slide, please. This is the conceptual site plan for the proposal, and you can see it is proposing the 19 units. The townhouses are arranged in 4 blocks, and there's 1 block fronting on Walton Avenue and 2 blocks fronting on the private condominium road. Next slide, please. And this is just a conceptual rendering that shows the site, in context a little bit. As you can see here, there's a large common amenity area proposed within the development so that future residents will have a place for passive and active recreation opportunities. And then in addition to this, each unit has a private rear yard amenity space. Parking is provided for each unit by one driveway and one garage parking space. And in addition, there are 3 visitor parking spaces accommodated, which satisfies the requirements of the zoning bylaw. There's one access connected to Walton Avenue, and there will be a sidewalk connection to the street as well. As you can see on this conceptual rendering, the intent is to provide landscaping and fencing along all property lines, and the extent of the landscape and fence will be determined through the site plan stage. There are only 4 units that front Walton, and this is so that the development will respect the low-rise character of the area. The development can be serviced by existing municipal water and sanitary services, and it is intended to be developed as a condominium community. So all the maintenance related to the development, like snow removal and landscaping, will be managed by the Condo Corp. Through the future plan of condo process, each townhouse and the respective front and rear yards will be created into a separately conveyable unit. And then the common elements will include the driveway, sidewalk, visitor parking spaces, common amenity areas, and the landscaped areas. And as Mr. Bice noted, the development is going to be subject to site plan approval, and so that will address detailed design matters like landscaping and lighting, fencing, waste collection, and the design of the private roadway, detailed servicing and grading, circulation, and accessibility. Next slide, please. I'll just kind of briefly go over the official plan because, again, Mr. Bice did have that covered very well. The lands are designated urban fringe by the county official plan. This designation establishes residential uses and permits new development. The proposed amendment seeks to establish a special policy area to permit this development. And the official plan amendment is intended to reflect the policy direction of the ongoing County of Perth Municipal Comprehensive Review. These lands are outside of the listable urban boundaries, so they're not subject to the listable official plan. Next slide, please. The lands are zoned rural residential in the North Perth zoning bylaw, and we are proposing to rezone the site R5 with a site-specific provision, and that is just that provision for a reduction of the rear yard from 7.5 meters to 4.5. And again, that this rear yard really does function as the side yard for the southerly-most unit, and the 4.5 meter requirement or request is consistent with the interior side yard setback of the zoning bylaw. And then again, each townhouse will feature a rear yard amenity space that will be a minimum of 7.5 meters deep. So it's really a technical request here. The reduced side yard also allows for a larger central amenity space for the development. It just provides a little bit of flexibility central to the site as opposed to at the rear of the site. Next slide, please. Prior to submitting the application, we did engage in a pre-consultation process with the county, and through this process, a number of reports were required, including planning justification report and an urban design brief, servicing plans, grading plans, the stormwater management report, functional servicing report, a geotechnical investigation, and an archaeological assessment. And these were all submitted in support of the application, have been reviewed by municipal staff and agencies. Through the ongoing review process, circulation comments were received, and we did provide comments back to staff in response. And then again, all those detailed design matters will be addressed at the future site plan stage. The next slide, please. And so, in closing, the applications, in our view, are consistent with the provincial policy statement. They conform to the policy framework of the official plan, and the zoning establishes appropriate regulations to permit the development. The development can be adequately serviced by municipal infrastructure in Walton Avenue, and they contribute to the range and type of housing mix in North Perth, and represent the direction of the ongoing official plan plan review. Overall, we think the applications represent good planning and support the staff recommendations. We would be pleased to answer any questions that council may have at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Elliott. Um, okay, this is the opportunity for council to ask questions or make initial comments about this. Colleagues, I open the floor to you for that purpose at this time. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. I totally understand that on one hand, we need to increase densification, or intensification throughout North Perth. I totally get that. However, what really concerns me about this application is, number one, is about fire protection and the lack of parking that is in there. I find that incredibly problematic. Yes, I can look at the truck turn radius and how that would work, and yes, an apparatus can go through there. We all know that people park where they shouldn't park regardless. Even if it states that this is a fire, people are going to park there if there's 19 dwellings that are in there. That's going to be a significant problem for safety in my mind. It could be anything from an ambulance coming, it could be a police call, it could be fire, additional equipment that is required. I think it's going to be very problematic, regardless if it meets the minimum standard for code. Sometimes the minimum isn't good enough, and of which our fire department has already expressed concern that it is not ideal. So for that, I'm not in favor of this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Richardson. Who's next, if anyone? Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Yes, and thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and I concur 100% with all of Councillor Richardson's comments here. Great presentation, great design, not the right location. I know we have to justify intensification also. We need to find other properties within the municipality of North Perth, and for those reasons and several others, I am not in support of this application either.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments in the public meeting? Councillor Blazek.
I echo the comments of my colleagues, and I think really want to emphasize the concern of if you drive back Walton North, and you see the slope of that road, the idea of traffic parking along that road, which we know is inevitable with that many dwellings, and that hill, it seems like an accident waiting to happen, and I don't want to be a part of the decision, or I don't want to approve a building that I feel is, or a development that I feel is an accident waiting to happen when that accident happens.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Blazek. Anyone else? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd and members of council. Thanks very much for the presentations and the reports. Infill development is extremely difficult. And anytime that we have a new type of development that's being proposed within an existing community, we are going to hear directly from the neighbors in terms of their quiet enjoyment of their properties. I feel the number of units that are being proposed here is on the highest side possible in terms of a particular type of development on townhouses, which creates the challenges that we're talking about in terms of the number of vehicles as well as parking. Now, one of the neighbors had talked about less dense development. I think they talked about potentially semis and so on. Frankly, that is on the other end of the spectrum in terms of being such low density as to not help us in our efforts to increase density and increased affordability. I'm wondering if staff have had discussions with the applicants in terms of some revision, in terms of a reduction in the amount of units, so that we can somehow see increased density in this location. Because frankly, I think Walton Avenue should see increased densities because we are going to have full municipal services down Walton Avenue. Someone has to pay for that, and it's not going to be the low-density residential development, which has traditionally all been on private municipal services. And that is the reason why those lots are so large. It was on private municipal services. If they were not on private municipal services, I can tell you the county official plan that was adopted back in 1997, which had an appeal on this specific policy to allow for development or not allow for development until such time as we had a servicing strategy, we wouldn't see the low density development that we have here today. Nevertheless, the policy is in place, development has occurred, they're a beautiful neighborhood and significant investments. But as soon as we put a full municipal services on that site, the game has changed. The rules have changed. And those have changed for everyone to know, realize, and understand. And any other new lot that's going to be up for sale in this neighborhood is probably going to see the same type of interest in terms of a higher density residential development. That being said, I am concerned about the number of units that are being proposed under this development and would like to see a reduction in the amount. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else wishing to offer questions or comments? I'm going to direct one to the proponent. Can you tell me about any intentions for affordability in this project?
Thank you. The units are intended to be market rate. However, they are townhouses, which are typically a lower price point than single detached dwellings. So they do contribute to the overall mix of dwelling types and price point, but they are intended to be market rate.
Thank you. I'll reserve further comment for our actual consideration of resolutions here, but I appreciate that answer. Any other questions from council before we consider adjourning this public meeting? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In Councillor Rothwell's soliloquy, there was a bit of a question worked in there, and I just wonder whether staff could answer that about whether it was looked at to lower the number of units. Sorry, I have a concern over the number of units as well. I just wonder whether that could be answered.
Mr. Bice.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Great question. Thanks for holding me accountable to answering that. But yes, lower density was discussed with the proponents in terms of reducing the units, but only to reduce the number of units to accommodate a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac at the rear. Staff still believe at 31.7 units per hectare that is an adequate sized density proposal. But I'll hand the mic over to the proponents to talk about the reason why the reduction wasn't considered. And I believe it was due to financing.
Ms. Elliott, did you wish to weigh in?
Sure. Through the mayor, the reduction in the number of units was related only to incorporating a cul-de-sac for circulation processes or purposes. And we did not move forward with a reduction in the number of units because we think that through the site plan application, we could demonstrate that vehicles and emergency vehicles will be able to circulate through the site. There's some revisions that we can look at. So this kind of sets the maximum density that could be achieved on this site, and then we can look at those circulation matters at the site plan stage. So the reduction of density was only raised as it related to circulation.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Johnston, anything further? Okay. Anyone else with questions or comments? Let's keep the comments brief at this point because we will consider resolutions. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I advise as follows, usual procedure here. Notice of the decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we adjourn this public meeting. All right, let's turn our attention next. We have a second public meeting for consideration this evening. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act, and I welcome those who are attending for the purpose of this public meeting to consider proposed amendment to the North Perth zoning bylaw. This is a statutory public meeting to deal with zoning bylaw amendment number Z05-2024 by Daryl and Ann Voskamp, related to property described as Lot 40, Concession 3, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, municipally known, as 6426 Line 87. Correspondence, reports, and comments received regarding this application will be considered by council. Those in attendance remotely wishing to make comments concerning this application will be given the opportunity to do so. Anyone wishing to appeal council's decision in this matter must make verbal submissions during this public meeting or have made a written submission to council. Those wishing to receive notice of the decision regarding this application must notify the clerk via email or telephone, giving their mailing address and telephone number. This time, I'm going to call for a summary of this application. This will be offered by Nathan Garland, who's a planner for the County of Perth who works on North Perth files. Welcome, Mr. Garland.
My apologies. I'm here to present application Z05-2024 on behalf of Daryl and Ann Boskamp. The owners and applicants are all the same. The location is Concession 3, Lot 40, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, municipal address 6426, line 87. So just a little bit of an outline of the subject property and lands being requested. So the current lands are designated MAR, so Mineral Aggregate Resources. They are currently joined as one larger property. So currently the property is one large 200-acre property. There was previously a consent application that North Perth Council might recognize to separate both properties into similar full 100-acre lots. As a condition of one of the severance applications, it was to rezone this area. So currently the MAR area, that's the only area that's being requested to be rezoned tonight. So that's the only area that we're focusing on. That MAR area is approximately 39 to 40 acres or so, about 16 hectares for that, just for council's reference. Just an overview of the information that's been presented. So there has been no comments or concerns presented by any of the public on this application. So no, the agencies had concerns, nor general public as they were circulated. The applicants did submit a supporting letter of surrender from the MNDMNRF. That's a tongue twister. I'll admit I have to give them credit because that letter was turned around in record time. I was somewhat concerned when they first started this discussion that they weren't going to get that letter, but they actually did pull it out and they got it around in record time. So my compliments to them. As noted, this is a condition of severance application B1922, which council did approve in 2023. The request is for the recreation of the original farm lots, which are 100 acres apiece. So this is one of the conditions requested. And then just for council's reference, a notice of public meeting and notice of application was provided on May 6, 2024 as a requirement of the Planning Act. Just a couple pictures from the road. So it's a typical country road in Wallace. Decent sight lines along there. So that's an area of one of the severed parcels. That's the parcels of the east looking towards the west, which is that other parcel. Notice of application has been provided. It's right there. You can see on the bottom left-hand side. And then farm laneway on there. I don't know. Looks like they're working on a farmhouse on the subject property, doing some renovations possibly or fixing up. I don't know what they have plans for the future subject lots, but they would be available for development in the future subject to MDS requirements. Oh, I went the wrong way, sorry. Just as an outline for policy consideration, it does meet both the provincial policy statement, County of Perth official plan, and North Perth zoning bylaw. One of the reasons for the rezoning application is to meet the North Perth zoning bylaw, because currently the zoning bylaw only accounts for agricultural and natural environment lands in the farm property size. Therefore, the MAR zone puts it below the minimum farm size. That's why the request for the rezoning is coming in at this time. And lastly, it is that we do support the application, so it is our recommendation that Municipality of North Perth receives the report and that they do support the application for the Perth County staff to approve the application. And I'm happy to address or answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garland. Thorough as always. Appreciate the brevity tonight. That's quite useful. All right, let me just turn to the clerk. I just want to make sure that public notice conditions have been fulfilled. I noticed that Mr. Garland mentioned it was posted on the property, but can you give us a little bit more information about that?
Notices inviting persons to a public meeting were mailed on May 6, 2024 by first-class mail to landowners within 120 meters, and they were emailed to all applicable agencies on the same day. The notice is posted on the website and on the subject property on May 6, 2024 as well.
All right, thank you, Clerk Carter. Let's see if there's any correspondence, comments, or reports that we haven't already seen that have been that need to be made available to council. Can you comment on this?
I have not received any correspondence.
All right, thank you very much. As with the previous public meeting, this is the opportunity for those who wish to make comments, and you are invited to do so. In doing so, we ask you to provide your name and contact information on the sign-in sheet that has been made available at the desk at the back of the council chambers. First, I will call for comments from any who are in favor other than the applicant. Do we have any indication of anyone who's registered for that purpose, Clerk Carter?
I am not aware of any.
Okay, anyone in the audience wishing to comment? Not seeing anything there. So there's the opportunity for those who are opposed to this application to be heard by council in this public meeting. Anyone wishing to take advantage of that opportunity? I'm not seeing any hands wave at me. Clerk Carter, we have not had anyone register remotely. Thank you. Opportunity for the applicant or the agent of the applicant to speak at this occasion. Have we been advised of any intention towards that end?
I have not heard from the applicant or the agent.
Okay. Anyone is a representative of the applicant or the applicant themselves present tonight and wishing to speak? Okay, we're not seeing that. All right, colleagues, the opportunity for you to ask questions about this application. Anyone wishing to ask questions at this point? Comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Just confirming in the report, Nathan, you do mention that because this is the license has been surrendered and so on, and the ministry's given it sign off, is that the area that's currently designated mineral aggregate resources will be taken away under the new official plans proposed. I believe that was the line in the report. I just want to confirm that.
Through your worship there, in response to Councillor Rothwell's question, that is correct, that would be the intention. Typically, these types of applications would be automatically rezoned. It's not that the applicant deliberately seeks out to rezoning. This one's a little bit unique because it is a condition of a severance, so that's why it's being initiated. So that would be the intention, correct?
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? I'm not seeing any, so I'll read the statutory notice. Notice the decision of council will be given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Council's decision is subject to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. And with that, we can adjourn this public meeting and call council back into open session. All right, so I'm going to declare that the recess period during which our public meetings were held is now over and that we have reconvened into our regular council meeting. We have some resolutions for consideration about both of these matters at this hour, and then after we've dealt with these, we'll take a bio break of 5 minutes or so. All right, so let's consider item 8.3. We have resolutions as follows. That North Perth Council receives the report dated May 27th, 2024, entitled County of Perth Official Plan Amendment Number 225 and Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z18-2023, submitted by MHBC Planning Limited, Emily Elliott and Robin McIntyre, on behalf of 2467858 Ontario Inc., affecting lands legally described as Park Lot 2, Plan 290, as in R243541, Wallace, in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 1020 Walton Avenue North, and that North Perth Council acknowledges that a public meeting was held pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act for Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z18-2023. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. This is a technical resolution to acknowledge that we had the public meeting. Can I call for a second? Councillor Norton, thank you. All right. Any discussion or debate on this one? Okay, seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Next resolution pertaining to this matter is as follows, that North Perth Council approves in principle zoning bylaw amendment Z18-2023, affecting the lands described as Part Park Lot 2, Plan 290, as in R243541, Wallace, in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 1020 Walton Avenue North. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstett, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Nordham, thank you. Discussion or debate? Colleagues, it was somewhat spirited during the public meeting for a change. So anyone wishing to offer any more comments on this matter? No. I'll offer the comment that I usually offer, which is I saw an absence of affordability in this project, and while that might make the residents of the neighborhood groan, it's actually perhaps in your benefit tonight, because from my perspective, the absence of any affordability against our 10-year housing plans and projections leads me to want to deny this application. So I will vote opposed on this one. Anyone else? All right, we're not seeing anyone else. Let's have the vote. And that is defeated unanimously. All right. We still have to consider the county resolution as well, because the county will consider this and requires or would ask for comment from North Perth Council. So the resolution for the county is as follows: that North Perth Council provides a recommendation to Perth County Council that official plan amendment number 225, affecting the lands described as Park Lot 2, Plan 290, as an R243541, Wallace, in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 1020 Walton Avenue North, be approved. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Nordham, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. Discussion or debate? This is the recommendation to the county as the approval authority. Anyone wishing to offer comment? Councillor Andrews.
Sorry, if I could just have clarification, if you don't mind. So if the motion was defeated, I'm not understanding how the resolution would be that we would support it, right?
Sure. So the bylaw, the zoning bylaw amendment, which was in principle and which would be coupled with the recommendation to the county, was defeated. That doesn't mean that this council can't consider a zoning bylaw amendment in the future if the county approved this project from the official plan perspective, if I'm not mistaken. That sounds right. Mr. Bice is nodding his head. So while we've turned down tonight approval in principle, the zoning bylaw, if the county approved the OPA, could come back to this table again. All right? It's just a procedural thing. But we are asked now to comment on this for county council's consideration. And that's what this resolution is about, is suggesting that this council may or may not, depending on the vote, send a resolution to county council with comments, either in approval or recommending approval or recommending denial, right? So the resolution here is to recommend approval. That's what the staff has placed before us, and we can make our choices on this coming up. Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. And just to confirm further, if this resolution recommending approval does not pass, this council will have to make a recommendation as to that it not be recommended for approval. Is that correct, or like to be clear?
I think historically there's been a mix of actions on this. County council could become aware that this council rejected the resolution to approve. But if this council is not necessarily required to take a position, as I understand it from a procedural perspective, inability, like the lack of taking a decision, means essentially that we did not present a choice, and that too is something that's appealable to the Ontario Land Tribunal, right? So we could also actively say we'd like to amend this resolution and recommend defeat if that's the will of council. So there's a couple of possibilities here. We can essentially defeat the resolution, and county council has a record of that, saying that it was defeated, or we could actively say we will defeat this. We make a note, like a recommendation to not approve, or we can remain silent, essentially, in the matter.
With your permission, Mayor Todd, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion on the floor then, that this application not be approved. And if council agrees, then we would have saved ourselves a fair bit of procedural time, and we'd be clear as to the resolution of this council.
Okay, so we've had a resolution duly moved and seconded. Councillor Rothwell has recommended that we add the word be not approved into the resolution. Is there a seconder for Councillor Rothwell's resolution? Okay, Deputy Mayor Kellum will be the seconder for the amendment. So the amendment is merely adding one word to the resolution, not. Everyone got it? All right. Discussion or debate on the amendment request? No discussion or debate. Okay, so we need to queue up the resolution that it says as an amendment that we are inserting the word not into the original resolution. We'll vote on that, and then we'll have the following vote after that, depending on the outcome of this one. All right? Okay, you got it? Okay, it looks like we're ready to have a vote. Let's have it. And that is carried. All right, so now back to the original resolution that has been changed. We've inserted one word in the resolution. For the sake of clarity, I'll read it again. That North Perth Council provides a recommendation to Perth County Council that official plan amendment number 225, affecting the lands described as Part Park Lot 2, Plan 290 as an R243541, Wallace, in the municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 1020 Wallace Avenue North, be not approved. That's the new resolution. This is the primary choice here. Everyone with us? Any discussion or debate on the primary resolution? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. So not having served in county council, a question to our councillors, there will be a public meeting, I'm sure, for this.
For the OPA.
Will our recommendation, does it carry much weight? I'm sure it's in your public records. I don't know how else to ask it. Does it carry much weight, or is it kind of just fluff?
You know what? I mean, can I speak for my colleagues? Not exactly, right? But I can tell you that 3 of the membership of county council have voted so far tonight, and we'll see what the final resolution is, to deny this application. So that's a starting place, potentially, right? As for our colleagues at the table, they'll receive through the planner a note that North Perth Council recommended denial, essentially, right? Not approved. So they'll have to act accordingly, and that will happen as a result of public meeting and resolution before the county table. Anything to add, Councillor Duncan, Deputy Mayor Kellum? Okay, so I think that's where we sit. Councillor Johnson.
So supplemental, will the neighbors have a chance to submit correspondence to that public meeting as well?
Absolutely. And I think that this is like a consolidated notice, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Bice. So already the comments that have been submitted are included in the OPA consideration that will lie at the county table in the near future. Thank you. All right. So Mr. Bice is giving me the thumbs up. I love it when the planner gives me the thumbs up. All right. Any other questions or comments? Everyone knows what we're voting on, which is the primary recommendation here, and it's to not approve. Everyone with me? Okay. Let's have the vote. And that is carried. The recommendation will be made to County Council that from North Perth Council that this application not be approved. all of those who came for this. Sometimes it works. All right, thank you. Let's turn to the Voskamp resolution set then next. As follows, we're going to break in 5, and that'll be a prime opportunity if you wish to exit the council meeting at that point to do so. We have for the Voskamp matter as follows, that the municipality of North Perth receives a report dated May 27, 2024, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Number Z05-2024, affecting lands described as Lot 40, Concession 3, Wallace Ward, North Perth, 6426, Perth Line 87. And that the municipality of North Perth approves zoning bylaw amendment Z05-2024, affecting lands described as Lot 40, Concession 3, Wallace Ward, North Perth, 6426, Perth Line 87, to rezone lands from Mineral Aggregate Resources Zone, MAR, to Agriculture Zone A. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Nordum. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this matter? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Let's call it 7. We'll be back at 8:57 by the clock in the room, and we'll resume our meeting at that time. Thank you. All right. So we have resumed from our bio break, and that allows us to turn to agenda item number 9, which is reports from departments and key staff. We have 2 items tonight from the Corporate Services Department. The first is item 9.1.1, which is an update to this council pertaining to the performance of municipal investments, primarily associated with our reserve funds. I'm going to call on Ashton Romani, our Director of Finance and Treasurer, to speak to this report and to call on any guests that he feels are needed to help support the information update. Mr. Romani, nice to have you with us again. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, and good evening, members of council. In 2021, the municipality invested funds in accordance with the municipality's investment policy in the amount of $19.5 million. These funds primarily represent reserve funds that are intended to be used in future years towards capital initiatives. In accordance with the various acts and regulations and the municipality's investment policy, an annual update is required for council. So to supplement tonight's update, Michael Ayres, the municipality's investment advisor, is here to provide an overview on the municipality's investments and an economic outlook surrounding them. Disclosed in both the report and the forthcoming presentation is the status of the municipality's investments. You'll see that the funds are invested in various notes over the next 5 years. More recently, one of these notes matured last month with a return of 3.89%, and that was in a total of $4 million principal note. These funds that were returned will be held off from being reinvested at this point in time, pending review of the upcoming capital outlook for the next budget year. So as of today, there's $15.5 million outstanding in investments in various notes with different maturity dates that Michael will be more than happy to walk you through. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Michael Ayres, our investment advisor.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks for having me here. I apologize to make you talk about banking this late at night, but glad to quickly go over some of the things that the municipality's invested in. I thought I would start with, see if I can master this. Nope. Over there? No? Oh. I was going to say just advance it then for me. Next one after that. So what I thought I'd start with is just explaining what these notes are. Think of them basically as a GIC that has a variable rate of return. These aren't anywhere near a big step out on risk. They're simply saying, back in 2021 when interest rates were extremely low, what else can we do to make something a little bit more than the rates, which I will show you in a moment, what they were at the time. So the idea behind these notes is to create something that's still principal guaranteed, so you're not putting any of the principal at risk. When it comes time to mature, if what they are linked to doesn't do well, or for whatever reason, you still get your money back. So they're the obligation of the issuer like a GIC, so just like you get a GIC at a bank, that bank has to stand behind those notes and make sure that you get your money back at the time of maturity. So that's no different. And these are structured so that we can create some customization to what looks good in the market, as well as what's comfortable for your capital budgeting, the timeframes, the maturities, so on and so forth. So unlike just accepting off-the-shelf GIC rates, this allows you to kind of customize some of the returns. So I'm going to use go. So if you can see it there, there's a few particular features that I'll kind of cover off right now. But by all means, if you have questions as I'm going, please feel free to jump in. So again, like I said, there's capital preservation in place, so 100% principal protection at maturity. There's a lot of diversification options, so we can diversify by asset class, such as whether you want to have them linked to equities, interest rates, commodities, whatever you guys think makes sense, staff makes sense, plus what our outlook would suggest. You can structure them to create income on a regular basis or growth at the end of the maturity. It depends if you need to generate income to fund maybe an operational need, or if it is truly purely long-term money and you want to try to get as high of a return as possible, then you can structure them just to pay out at the end of the note. You can also target specific liability matching. So if you know you have a particular need for this money in, say, 3.5 years, we can create a 3.5-year note that will match to the day your need for the money. Unlike a GIC that gets locked in for a particular period, you can redeem them early if, for whatever reason, there was a need to redeem them early. If you redeem them early, that is the only point where there is some fluctuation in terms of what comes back to you. It could be a significant positive return. It could potentially be a negative return. So that principal guarantee that I mentioned earlier is at the date of maturity, similar to a GIC getting a penalty if you redeem it early. The credit rating carries CIBC's, in this case, because I represent CIBC, obviously. Our credit rating in these notes do fully comply with the Ontario Municipal Act. So everything is on side there. Any questions about any of the features? No? Okay. As I mentioned, this is just an example of the types of things that we can link the return, that variable rate return to. So equities, like I said, commodities, interest rates, whether they're floating or fixed, currencies, and then different jurisdictions. So if you want to link it to something in the Canadian market, the UK market, the US market, or whatever. So lots of flexibility here allows us to really align things to your needs. Any questions about what the note is? Sometimes councils ask a ton of questions. Some they get it right away. I've seen both. I just want to make sure that the design of the note makes sense and you understand what it is. Okay, perfect. At the end, I'll talk a little bit specifically about the notes you hold, but I'll give you kind of a backdrop of where things are at right now. So when you look at the market, particularly as it pertains to things that affect these notes, we see inflation, we see economic growth, we see employment rates all starting to slow down a little bit. You see news headings every day about this, of course. And so the backdrop there is that we're starting to anticipate interest rate cuts, which I'm sure anybody with a mortgage in the room is probably glad to hear. The way that affects these notes is that the discount, the way the notes are structured when we build them, is they're sensitive to interest rate movements, they're inversely sensitive. So if interest rates do start to come down in the next few years, that's a positive for these notes because they go up in value as those rates come down, and vice versa in 2022 when they went up, the value of these notes, if redeemed early, would have gone down. So right now the outlook is quite strong on these notes because of the fact that we have this expectation of lower interest rates. Equity market valuations, which a number of these notes are linked to, have been increasing over the last few quarters. As I'm sure you guys all remember, in 2022, it was not a beautiful year for financial markets. So that has turned the corner finally and starting to look much more positive. And there is a glut of money. There's trillions of dollars, nearly $6 trillion right now, sitting in cash and money market accounts that are going to start flooding into other asset classes as these rates come down and money market accounts look less attractive. And what that does is it further puts pressure on interest rates going down, which will further push upward pressure on the price of notes like this. Does that make sense? Okay. Just to flip over to the slide here. So this is a summary of the specific notes that you guys still have. As mentioned, you guys just had one that matured for $4 million. And so if you look at the bottom, those were the interest rates for GICs at the time of making the decision to go this route with customized notes as opposed to fixed rate GICs. So 1-year notes were between 0.35 and 0.45%. 3-year notes were 0.7 and 5-year notes were 1%. So obviously not exactly the best market, especially if you're constrained by low risk investments in a public sector entity. When we build these notes, we try to target a 50% to 100% return above whatever the prevailing GIC rate is. So that's the idea of saying, well, if you're going to take that small step in risk out and take a variable return instead of a fixed return, you should be getting rewarded for that. And so we try to kind of get a 50% to 100% premium above fixed rate GICs. Okay. So right now, maturing in 2025, you've got $4 million in notes split between an insurance-linked growth note and a telecoms index-linked growth note, meaning that at that point in maturity, we will look at the insurance stock index, sub-index, and the telecom stock index, see what kind of return was generated over the period of the note, and then there's a a calculation that gets done to figure out what kind of participation rate you get. And so ultimately these notes and everything in between is kind of irrelevant until the day of maturity, and that's when the calculation pretty much gets done at that point. I mean, we can kind of see how things are going in the meantime, but that's how it gets calculated. You've got a $4 million and a $2 million maturity in 2026. One is linked to the bank's index and another insurance index growth note. And then in 2028, so we skip 2027 in maturity, go to 2028, and there's $5.5 million that's maturing, $2 million inside of a broad Canadian blue chip index note, and then there's an annual pay note, so you get an interest payment on an annual basis from this final note. And just to let you know how those are doing at the moment, currently built into the calculation for what your return will be, the 2025 insurance note is up 16.23%. The telecoms growth note is the only one that has not gone above its original set price. So that at this moment, if the note were to mature today, you would get your principal back. The bank's growth note has returned 6.96%. The longer dated 2026 insurance index growth note is up 18.54%. And the broader blue chip index growth note that matures in 2028 is up 13.08%. And the annual pay note that I mentioned is averaging about 3% per year right now. So on a weighted average basis, that's 9.67% across all of the notes, which is averaging out to about 3.2% per year. So if you compare that to those GIC rates I put up there, that's well above that 50 or 100% premium we were looking for. So we're looking at like 300-400% premium there. Any questions?
What's the participation on, like, I'm looking at the Canadian Insurance Growth Note, 70% participation. What's that mean?
Yeah, so when you have a reference to participation, it just tells you how much of the return you're going to get paid on. So depending on which time, back in 2021, the lower that interest rates are, the less participation you typically see. And then when rates go higher, then you typically get higher participation. Again, I can go into the mechanics of it, but that's essentially what it means. Else? Okay.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. The question I have is just around the investment timeframes, because some notes were 1 year, 3 year, 5 year. How is it decided any given year how long we invest? Is it basically based on the percentages that you could earn in that time frame, or the fact that we might need that money earlier? Any thoughts around that?
No, it's a good question. Typically, you wouldn't go down this route unless you were going to do 3 years or longer. It usually makes sense. And I know, although I can't speak for the commercial banking side of the relationship, your deposit rates are very high. So it makes alternatives in the 1 and 2 year space less attractive. So just even having money in the bank account, you're getting a really good interest rate on a comparative basis. So typically it's 3 years or longer where you would put something customized like this in place. Then what it is, it's a matter of if there is any capital budgeting that needs to be matched, then that would get done. If it's sort of just open-ended reserve money where there's no set need for it, at that point you start to bring in sort of traditional sort of portfolio management strategies where you want to have diversification across a couple different years, diversification across what it's linked to, so you spread your risk out a little bit. The idea is ultimately also to end up where you have a certain percentage of the money maturing every year after those first 2 year periods, so that you have capital being freed up all the time without having to redeem it early.
That's kind of where I was going, and I wanted to know if every year there's money coming due, so to speak, that we can access if needed or reinvest.
Typically, particularly with public sector entities, that's the way we do it. There was a recent note that matured and it was held back for needs of the budget. But usually what happens is that rolled over, we would look at the gaps, any gaps that might be in that laddering, and then we would sort of fill it in as staff thought made sense.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to Treasurer Romani, can you comment on how information from our sort of capital projections might influence investments in these notes and how that kind of fits together.
So through your case, a great question. At this point in time, like we've discussed at another session, that the capital outlay outlook over the next 4 years is significant. The 2025 budget process will have a quite good look at what's going to be affordable through that process. So I can't answer with certainty now until that process actually happens. But when we do, look at kind of extending some of the time frame of our capital purchases, it will influence how our investments will look in the later years. So just as Michael referenced, of having that cash flow for up in year 3, depending on whatever the capital requirement might be then.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you to the team. We do have a resolution, just acknowledgement that we've had the report as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the annual investment performance update report for information. Moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this? Let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Romani doesn't get a break. He gets to stand before us again. He's bringing forward a quarterly financial update. This is a new format for this report. Council will note that there is opportunity to improve upon the report by making suggestions to Mr. Romani. I've been nagging at him, so he's heard from me. Let him hear from you. It would be good. But it is good, certainly, to have this report back into our mix, and I'm grateful for him to work with myself and the staff to try to get something efficient on our table on this subject. So, with that, Prelude, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. So this report outlines the first quarter unaudited operating performance of the municipality, excluding library services and the BIA. So as referenced in the report, as of Q1 2024, approximately $8.3 million have been spent, which represents just under 1/4 of the operating budget, expenditure budget. On the contra, $3.2 million has been collected in revenues, which represents 7.4% of the budget. This is somewhat normal for this point of the year, as some of these figures represent a number of items such as grant funding, programming, rental, programming revenues, facility rentals, building permit activities that you normally see peak during the second and third quarter of each year. So the attached statement of operations outlines the revenues and expenditures of each department. This format does vary to what was presented during the 2024 budget process, and finance staff are actively looking at ways to continue to enhance the reporting for both council and the public. So staff will use the future reporting quarterly reports to look at improving that, and as well the 2025 budget process will be a key measure to promote consistently for quarterly reporting going forward as well. So we're certainly open to any feedback in the interim. One key item to highlight, as referenced in the report, is the municipality's winter control budget. No surprise, with the milder winter, only 32% of the winter's maintenance budget has been expended, and it is expected that the significant savings that would be achieved by year-end, even including those, if any, expended in April and in the latter months of this year, will be offset with the overages for the gravel maintenance that was approved, referenced in Mr. Couch's report back in February, I believe. So lastly, the report does not include any capital. At this point, we're going to include the capital in the next quarterly update, which is projected to be in the later summer months. So at this point, I'd like to be able to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Romani. Colleagues, questions on this report? I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the Q1 financial operating results report for information. Moved by Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Again, thanks to Mr. Romany. He's got his boots well dug in now, and so things are starting to become much clearer in terms of our financial performance. Okay, let's turn to item 9.2, reports from the Development and Protective Services Department. As item 9.2.1, Council has before it a report from Perth County Planner Nathan Garland pertaining to a proposed land severance with residential intention on Nelson Avenue in the Listowel ward in North Perth. Mr. Garland, welcome back. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, members of North Perth Council. I'm here to present on consent application 12-2024. The owners are Terra Park Developments. The applicant and agent is MHBC Planning Inc. The location is 595 Havelock Street. That's the municipal address. Just for council's reference, that blue outline is not a new zone. That's actually just a yellow zone that I've highlighted inadvertently. So it's just a highlight. Sorry. Just an outline of the request being severed. So that yellow area is the request to be severed. Currently, there is the request also for 2 easements to be located on the property, both the severed and the retained. So the severed property is requested to have an easement both for access and a drainage easement across there for maintenance and servicing. And then the retained parcel also will have, the retained parcel will have the access easement for the severed parcel, and the severed parcel will have a bit of a drainage access or easement requested as well too. So the approximate size is 0.42 acres for the severed lot, or 1.7 hectares. The frontage is 30 meters. And the retained lot is 0.49 hectares, or 1.2 acres. And then it is also built. It has that existing seniors residence on there as well as parking. So it's fully built out. There's nothing other proposed on the retained lands. The vacant lands will be severed off for future development. There's just a bit of an outline for the severed and retained lands as shown. So as mentioned, they've shown a bit of a conceptual sketch on there right now. My understanding is they currently don't have a plan to build on the severed lands, so that would be determined in the future. They're not looking for a rezoning at this time. But that's kind of a conceptual idea of what's being considered there. It just shows the easement and access across that part 2 on the subject property, the retained area. I'm just going to try to flip to the next slide, which might show it a little bit better. That's where the drainage easement. So currently that property, the severed area, has a stormwater management pond on the property. So that does function for the area to contain stormwater. What they're requesting is to actually locate an underground storage chamber. So this would be used for infiltration as well as replicate the storage function on site. So that would be located on the retained lands underneath the parking lot. It's a bit of a low impact development type of approach because it does improve some infiltration as well as gets rid of that superficial storm pond. So it does accommodate additional area on there. No comments or concerns have been expressed by the general public on this application, so we haven't heard any feedback. No agency comments out of the Brew Water Recycling Association and Hydro. None of them had concerns on the application. Staff did review this as part of a pre-consultation discussion. There were some servicing discussions as well as some sidewalk connections. Those would be discussed through the site plan application stage should the application or the severance be considered and approved. So just some things to address tying the property into Nelson Street if this does move forward. A couple site photos. So hard to make out, but there is a depression on the front of that property that would be eliminated as part of the future development. That functions for the stormwater management in the area. That is required to be replicated on the retained lands. So that's where that infiltration gallery is required to be relocated underneath the parking lot. So they would have to do some paving work, dig down a little bit, put some infiltration in through there. Typically through perforated pipes, some type of dome chamber, etc. I'll leave that up to the engineers to design that, but they do have a conceptual design that was provided by MTE Consultants as part of the functional servicing and stormwater report provided. So then the future development might be located in that severed area. As mentioned, there's no development or plans for that retained lot, so that existing building would remain like is, but that grassed area would be occupied by a parking lot and future development potentially. Just a review of the application. So the applicant has submitted a functional servicing and stormwater report prepared by MTE Consultants. So they would be providing engineering advice for the subject property as part of a site plan application update. There are easements proposed both for the severed and retained. Typically, they are primarily in respect to access as well as drainage and access for the drainage in the future. So just making sure they can do clean outs, maintain their drainage, stormwater function, etc. Meets the zoning requirements, save and except for the landscape open space on the retained lands at the rear yard depth. So those are some slight variations. The landscape open space drops down to approximately 31%, and the rear yard drops down just slightly as well too. No, as I said, no changes to the actual configuration of the building, etc. Those would be requested to come in as a minor variance application in the future to be addressed, and there is a condition recommended or requested as part of the severance application. Notice of application was provided on April 11th, 2024, and as mentioned, there has been no comments provided or no additional feedback provided by the neighbors. And so staff are supportive of the application. So it is that we recommend that we acknowledge that the application has been submitted, and then we do ask that North Perth Council support the application. I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Garland. Let's turn to questions or first comments. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Mr. Garland, I just have a question. On the diagram, it shows, and you mentioned it too, that how they will retain the parking that goes all the way down, and then that orange area, the new development would have to create their own parking in there.
Through your worship, yes, in response to Councilor Andreessen's question, they would have to provide their own parking on that site through there, or they could create a parking agreement on the off-site property as well too to accommodate, because they are within 150 meters of that also. So a couple different options, but it really depends on the type of design and style of their building that they're putting there.
Okay, just a comment, if I may. It just seems odd that they aren't letting or severing off that parking with it.
Through the mayor, my understanding is just because that easement or because that alignment aligns with the existing building, they're maintaining the access way, and that's why they want to retain it for that. So that's part of that configuration. Therefore, the easement's required to get access to that severed parcel, or just overland access for that. So.
Okay, that actually explains it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or first comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you to Nathan, thanks for your report. So again, there's no specific plan that the developer has for the severed lands, although it's intended that there will be development that's going to comply with the zoning bylaw being a seniors facility. Is that correct?
Through your worship, yes, in response to Councilor Rothwell's question, my understanding is it would be still maintained a seniors development that R6 zone. So, yeah.
And just further, so given what you said, presumably they need to sever this off so they can have separate financing or something for a different development. I mean, that would presumably be one of the only reasons why you would be doing this. Is that right?
Through the mayor, I don't know the financing details, etc. Other than that would be a logical conclusion.
Good, thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions or first comments? I'm not seeing any, so I do have a resolution for consideration as follows, that the Municipality of North Perth supports application B12-24 submitted by MHBC Planning on behalf of JGAP Chung, and that North Perth Council advises the Land Division Committee or its delegated authority that the Municipality of North Perth supports application file B12-24 submitted by MHBC Planning on behalf of JGAP Chung for lands described as Part Block 39, Plan 44M10, Registered Plan 44R 5853, Parts 2 and 3 listable in the Municipality of North Perth, municipally known as 595 Havelock Avenue South, subject to the following conditions. There are 9. They are in the planner's report. I'm not going to read them out as much as Councillor Johnston might like me to do so. So, can I call for a mover on this one? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have a vote on that one. And that is carried. Thank you. As item 9.2.2, on our agenda, council is invited to consider again with more information provided by staff a proposal from Macomb Developments for development of lands in the Wallace Ward, primarily for residential purposes. Staff has brought forward a report in response to questions at the last meeting of this council. Mr. Garland, I think you're the one up once again to address the updated and augmented report and the matter generally as you see it at this hour. Mr. Garland.
Thank you, Mayor Kiesenberg, members of council. I'm here to provide this supplemental report. I don't have a formal presentation as outlined previously. Ms. Smith has also spoken to this application as part of the council presentation. I am here to address or answer any questions. I do want to highlight a couple of items, though. That being one is that staff have touched base with Listowel Hospital staff who work with the helipad folks at Orange. So we will be setting up a meeting. The fellow's name is Steve, and I don't know who they've reached out to, but they have a contact there that they are putting us in touch with. So we will be looking to set up a separate meeting with the applicant. That does not affect the request tonight. So the request tonight is still for that boundary or that urban boundary area to be included in the area, so the listable settlement area. So this is still the official plan stage. That would be a lot of the items would be addressed through the zoning stage. So we would come back to North Perth Council at that time with a more fulsome response to a number of those questions. The second item also highlighted on the subject area was the area around the council-supported resolution was around affordable housing. That is something that I know we've talked a lot about at this council chamber and through discussions. We still do struggle with it, so we have extrapolated a portion of the draft official plan that looks at a variety of the housing affordable options across the spectrum, and we are requesting to send that to the applicants so that they can give us a more fulsome response on how they are addressing that entire response in that framework and chart. So, as I mentioned, I'm happy to address or answer any questions of council at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garland. Let's turn to colleagues here. Questions or first comments on this matter? This is broadly now, right? We've got more answers, but the broad issue is our recommendation here. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much. Through you, Mayor Todd, thanks for the report, Nathan. So again, just on that affordability piece on page 390 of our agenda package. So this is from the county official plan background reports and so on. The province has made clear that they're going to be updating the affordability and attainability definitions and so on. Have they done that yet?
Mayor, I'm not aware of them doing this, so this is based off that Watson report.
Yeah.
Recollection. So this is based off the Watson report and extrapolating that. So we are using the numbers or interpreted numbers from Watson, so as site-specific as possible. I don't know how the province will address, amend, alter, etc. So,
and this isn't me getting up on a pedestal here, but I think at some point North Perth Council has done this many a time. Frankly, it's fine to talk about affordability and so on, and if we don't know what affordability is anymore, I think it's up to the province to hurry up and get it done, and the federal government through the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. This is not something new, and it's expected that it should be happening sooner as opposed to allowing sales of liquor at convenience stores. Anyways, thank you.
I'm not supposed to laugh too much into the microphone, I don't think. Thank you. That was colorful, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else? Councillor Norton.
Thanks, and through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Just a question on the zoning. Around Listowel Livestock, currently it's R5. I'm just curious, is that still the plan for the developer to have R5 around?
Through the mayor, I believe it's still the R5 special zone, but we would have to look at the amended setbacks and actually address if there's height considerations or if there's setback requirements from that landing pad. So that's the consideration, but as I said, that would be brought back to North Perth Council again with a more detailed consideration and possibly amended.
Anyone else with questions or first comments before we consider the resolution? Okay, not seeing any, so I'm going to read the resolution as follows: that North Perth Council receives the report dated May 27, 2024, entitled County of Perth Official Plan Amendment Number 220 and North Perth Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z15-2023, submitted by MHBC Planning Limited on behalf of the Macomb Developments, Inc., affecting lands described as Part Lot 23, Concession 2, Wallace Ward in North Perth, municipally known as 5917 Line 87. and that North Perth Council provides a recommendation to Perth County Council that official plan amendment number 220, affecting the lands described above, be approved. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Thank you. Discussion or debate? Councillor Nordum.
Thanks, Mayor Kaseberg. I still struggle with putting housing beside a prominent agriculture business such as this, so I will not be in support of the motion tonight.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nordum. Anyone else with comments, discussion, or debate? Councillor Rothwell, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. And my comment is specific that I don't believe that we need to amend this motion, but there has been discussion around this table to address the issue of affordability. And I think if council is willing to recommend approval to Perth County Council for this official plan amendment, it has to be understood that we are expecting a broad range of affordable housing. And further to Councillor's point, Councillor Norton's point about the mix and location of development. My understanding in the public meeting that we had is that we will get more specific details when the draft plan of subdivision come forward, which we have not got yet, which will actually go into specific details. That's what my understanding is. And for the most part, the only issue that we're dealing with specifically here tonight is the official plan amendments. So on that basis, I'm supportive, but hopeful that everyone understands that at least this councillor, and I believe all of council, is concerned to make sure that we have a broad range of affordability within this development.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments, discussion, or debate? Councillor Blazek, go ahead.
Thanks. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, my concerns remain the same. I struggle with the idea of developing that end of town before we have had a commitment from the MTO to improve the traffic concerns at Highway 23 and 87. So I will not be in support of this proposal tonight.
Okay, thank you. Planner Garland, staff, do we know anything more from the province with regards to their intentions regarding traffic management in that area of the community? Go ahead.
Through your worship, not to my knowledge, there's no finalization for I think it's a chicken and egg kind of thing. They won't know until we build, and they won't build until we know. So it's a bit of a waiting game on that end of things. We can look at things like phasing, et cetera, in a plan of subdivision. So typically things don't move forward unless they're satisfied. So we hold off on specific phasing. This is broken out in 2 phases. I don't want to delve into the details too much because that is still in the zoning and the subdivision stage. So we are just asking for the consideration in the settlement area tonight, but things like phasing, et cetera, and I've noted them down to bring them back to the concern to the applicant for some of this discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garland. I think at times it's challenging for us as councillors to figure out at what stage we intervene with some of the concerns that we have, right? It's never been crystal clear to me, despite 5.5 years of sitting in this chair, when exactly you raise questions like affordability and so forth. And I know I've had conversations with Mr. Garland and Ms. McMullen, our current planning director's predecessor, about these questions to try to make sense of when we intervene. But narrowly tonight, we are talking about the official plan amendment for the county. So just remember that piece. I think that's been made clear by a couple of the speakers here tonight. Any other questions or discussion or debate at this point? I will say this. I heard a little bit earlier tonight that there is some commitment, some interest in affordability in this project now. And I hope that's true, because remember, our 10-year Watson forecast says that about we need 2,600 homes. This represents 13% of the growth in housing in North Perth over the next 10 years. And for us to not see any affordability would be, in my opinion, a problem. However, I'm going to take the developer at their word that they intend to do something about affordable. There are certainly options in our environment now where you can partner with organizations that can support you and help you with that. And so, my initial reservations, and I certainly, Councillor Rothwell and I both have those reservations. I think it's fair that I'm going to take developer at their word. I will offer Riley that if that word isn't redeemed, it won't look good for any future developers, in my opinion. So, a lot on your shoulders, perhaps, to the company that is the proponent here. Any other comments, discussion, debate at this point? For some reason, eScribe kicked me out, so I apologize as I log back in. Councillor Andreessen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought I'd enter the debate. I concur with some of my colleagues. I am concerned about the land usage around that agricultural parcel and would have preferred to see some even light industrial in that area and then move into more residential from there to kind of couch the agricultural. So I'm not going to support this application at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to make comments at this point? All right, we have a resolution for our consideration. It is as follows: that North Perth Council receives the report dated May 27, 2024, entitled County of Perth Official Plan Amendment Number 220 and North Perth Zoning Bylaw Amendment Z15-2023, submitted by MHBC Planning on behalf of the Macomb Developments, Inc., affecting lands described as Part Lot 23, Concession 2, Wallace Ward in North Perth, municipally known as 5917 Line 87, and that North Perth Council provides a recommendation to Perth County Council that Official Plan Amendment Number 220, affecting the lands described above, be approved. It has been moved and seconded. Any last comments? All right, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Let's move to item 9.2.3. Council is invited to make a recommendation for the approval of a land consent to sever application from parties Graham and Sharon Crabb that would have the effect of shifting some lands to another parcel for the sake of expanding the size of one farm and diminishing the size of another parcel. Mr. Garland, it was the one that I had questions about today, but please help us understand this one.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. This is my last presentation for tonight. I am here to present on application 09-2024. The owners, applicants, and agents are Graham and Sharon Crabb. The location is part lots 13 and 14, concession 4, and part of 13, concession 3, Wallace Ward, municipal address 8588, road 152. So as discussed or as mentioned, I guess I'll try to highlight, this is a request to a lot line adjustment, so this is not a creation of a parcel. This is a lot line adjustment where they're severing off a portion of land and then merging it with the other portion of land. The current owners own 150 acres, so those are the two part lots on the north end, and then the 50 acres to the south as well too. I've highlighted that, the staff report has highlighted that in red. And then the yellow area is requested to come off that 150 acres and then merge with the area to the north. That's the 100 acres to the north, so that will create a 115 acre parcel. The overall intent of the request is to move that 15 acres, so it will make an enlarged 115 acre parcel and then a retained 135 acre parcel. Both of them meet the agricultural standard in lot size for the North Perth. And then, yeah, there was to be frontage on there, no additional roads, buildings, etc. This is a lot line adjustment for farming purposes. I'm just going to flip over to the submitted sketch. That is the submitted sketch. Through there, you'll just notice I've highlighted it in blue what the acreage is. So that's 61 acres on that, 61 hectares, sorry, that's the 150 acres. And then also the one to the north, that's that 100 acre parcel. So that's where the current lot lines are. Sorry, they're both in blue, but there is a blue line that runs down the middle of them right now. I'll just flip to the next slide. No public or agency concerns on the application, so we haven't heard any kind of concerns from either the neighbors or the general public on the application, either support or against. And agency comments, there have been no agency comments. The parcel is not regulated by the conservation area or authority in that area, and there would be no building lot created. It is a bit of a hill that goes over top of there, so it is part of a bit of a hill on 152, but as said, it's just going to be farmed as part of that larger parcel. So there's just a couple pictures from Road 152. One's looking directly along that severed line there towards the bush area. So that severance line does propose to run down between those two bush areas. So the one bush would be consolidated to the north, and then the other retained bush would be on the retained parcel to the south. And then just a picture on the right-hand side, that's just looking down the hill along 152 at the retained parcel, the house and the barn, etc. Planning comments. The request is for a lot line adjustment. As mentioned, the applicant has indicated, the general intent is for the owner to decrease their farming operations. They're looking to reduce a little bit of their farmable operations. This was a convenient way to modify it. We did have a number of discussions with the owner. North Perth zoning bylaw, the minimum farm size is 75 acres, so he does have 150, so we did consider the 75-75 split. It makes quite an, I'll say, undesirable L-shaped lot. It kind of creates a bit of an odd lot for farming, etc. So this was, I don't want to say compromise, but this was an alternative option that didn't offend the policies, and staff considered this as well, and we're supportive of it. As mentioned, both the severed and retained lots will both meet the minimum farm size. There are no MDS concerns. Both are separated completely. It's a lot line adjustment. There is no concern. And then there is no supportable future severance. Because both the parcels are now below that 150 threshold, neither one of them can be severed off other than a surplus farm dwelling. So what happens is actually you get rid of that 75-acre potential. So you make it a little bit tighter for severance other than a surplus farm dwelling in the future, in which case that would have to meet the surplus farm criteria as noted in the official plan. So it is my recommendation that North Perth support the application presented, and I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Garland. Questions or first comments before we consider the resolution? Everybody got it now? Okay. I have a resolution as follows then, that the municipality of North Perth supports application B09-24 submitted by Graham and Sharon Crabb, and that the municipality of North Perth Council recommends approval of consent B09-24 for part lots 13 and 14, concession 4, Wallace Ward, municipality of North Perth, and forwards the conditions listed in the staff report dated May 27, 2024 to the County of Perth Land Division Committee or its designate. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Mr. Garland, lots of work tonight. Thank you. Tap dancing next time. Better than singing or not? I don't know. All right, thank you. Let's have a single matter next in the agenda from the Strategic Initiatives Department. As item 9.3.1, the Manager of Strategic Initiatives, Jessica McLean, has brought forward a more detailed report pertaining to the proposition floated earlier by a community group that this council designate the Fisher Family Primary Care Center as a municipal capital facility and promulgate an agreement that would have the effects of tax reduction or exemption for the facility. The answer, it appears, is somewhat complicated. Despite this, that staff bring forward an interesting opportunity to try to reduce the temperature and healthcare challenges in our community, and it's worth hearing. So, Ms. McLean, walk us through this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, and good evening, Council. As mentioned by the Mayor, this report is in response to Council's direction to investigate the request for the Fisher Family Primary Care Center to be declared a municipal capital facility. So for a bit of background on municipal capital facilities, these are agreements that can be used by municipalities to create relationships with others to deliver municipal facilities. The types of municipal capital facilities listed in the regulation include, among others, facilities that are related to the provision of social and healthcare services. Assistance for municipal capital facilities from a municipality can include property tax exemptions or reductions, and also development charge exemptions, as well as other forms of assistance. In terms of the property in question, the Fisher Clinic property is owned by the Listowel Memorial Hospital, the Listowel Wingham and Area Family Health Team, Life Labs, and each practicing family physician are tenants of the facility. As outlined in the report and the attached letter, an expansion of the Fisher Clinic is now underway. As part of the information collection exercise for this report, staff contacted the CEO of the Listowel Wingham Health Hospital Alliance, as well as the executive director of the Listowel Wingham and Area Family Health Team, for their comments on declaring the Fisher Clinic as a municipal capital facility, and these comments are summarized in the council report. A letter of support was also received from the CEO of the Listowel Wingham Hospital Alliance, which contains additional insight on the request. Overall, it was commented that a municipal capital facility agreement would contribute to long-term physician recruitment and retention efforts by assisting with ongoing operating costs of the expanded clinic and reducing overhead for tenants, for example, future and current physicians. The request to declare the Fisher Clinic as a municipal capital facility was discussed with the municipality's treasurer, the tax collector, and the CAO. Through these discussions, staff acknowledged that declaring the clinic as a municipal capital facility may encourage similar requests or create inequity for properties that fall within the 18 classes of municipal capital facilities that are defined in the Act. Staff also discussed the issue of Life Labs, which is a commercial tenant in the current facility benefiting from this type of agreement. A reminder to Council that North Perth has adopted a strategic priority that the municipality plays an active role in healthcare recruitment and improving local healthcare access. Staff are proposing to Council an alternative option to consider by supporting physician recruitment through an increased annual municipal donation. So in addition to North Perth's annual $20,000 donation that goes towards supporting the physician recruiter role, the allocation to the municipality's healthcare reserved fund, which was established in the 2024 budget at $25,000 annually, could be repurposed as a direct donation and increased by $20,000. This would result in an annual donation towards the Listowel Memorial Hospital of $65,000. From staff's perspective, this is thought to be an equitable arrangement, does not set the same level of precedent as a municipal capital facility agreement, and also gives the hospital flexibility in how the annual donation is utilized. Based on Council's conversation and direction tonight, these changes could be brought forward in the 2025 budget proposal, and I can answer any questions or comments that Council may have.
Thank you, Ms. McLean, for your report. Colleagues, you see how there's a little bit of movement there, but the intent, the outcome is intended to be the same in terms of the hospital's gain financially to support broader initiatives. Other questions, comments at this point? Let's see where we're going. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Yes, sir. Mayor Kaysenberg, and thank you for the report, Jessica. I've been giving this quite a bit of consideration, and although I would like to give them reduce the tax burden, I think we open it up to the other examples that are there that we would have, you know, the long-term health, the walking clinics, et cetera. So I do support the $65,000 annually, but I want it to be stipulated, earmarked directly for doctor recruitment only and not to use as they wish. That's what I would like seen done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kellum. Anyone else with comments, questions at this point before we consider a resolution? Let's go to Councillor Andreessen first, then Councillor Anstead.
Thank you for your comments, Deputy Mayor Kellum. I'm just wondering, I totally appreciate doctor recruitment, and I really think it's wonderful that we support it already. But is that direction going to impede the hospital and the clinic in moving forward with this project if all the money is directed to just recruitment? Do you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering, you know, what benefits this, you know, our hospital and our clinic most. And I totally agree that we need recruitment and we invest already, but would they appreciate money at with the ability to direct it into a means that might be helpful to them as well. I don't know, I'm just asking those questions, but.
If I might weigh in here,
Yeah, thank you.
I think the work of this council has certainly in the past, and those who've been here for a while, supported various capital equipment purchases. Physician recruitment was the other category of things that this council wanted to engage with. And so from my perspective, I understand the Deputy Mayor's sentiment and think that designation for that purpose makes a whole lot of sense to me because it continues council's historical choices about a gift to the hospital. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Did I? Okay, thanks. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you. Through your case, is there any way, and I know it says that the impact assessment might be very difficult to ascertain at this point in time, is there any way of looking at the square footage of what they're trying to put up? It's nice to have a good apples to apples comparison as to what we're weighing up here. On one side, we can give this 5, that's great. If I understand Mr. Ellis's letter coming forward, that if we just had, we're going to have a large cash ask after the fact. Unless I'm misunderstanding, if it was the capital facility, there would be no ask after the fact, unless I completely have lunch.
Question. In terms of the MPAC assessment, I do not think that we would be able to estimate that. The treasurer may correct me on that. Based on the letter, I think they're basing off of the footprint of the facility doubling. There were some figures in the letter from Mr. Ellis. The concept of increasing the donation amount towards the hospital was not brought forward prior to the letter being written, so I can't comment on this time if that would impact a potential ask in the future.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering if it wouldn't be prudent I'm fully on board with supporting any possible way that we can, but if there's any way to figure out also that money either side, of which if it's going to be there, it's going to be there, is to possibly wait for that clarification. Because if we do the capital, I'm just reading it. If we do the capital, then there's no ask. If we just do the increase in the yearly budget, then there's an ask. Did anyone else not read that, or am I missing English class?
Sort of vaguely, that was my impression, that if we didn't act, like if we weren't supporting the physician recruitment and this capital facilities ask, that there might be a capital ask, which council could consider in due course, right? Like it's always council's privilege to say yes or no to those kind of asks. I do think that there's a time issue here that when the new build has been complete, there will be an impact ding, and council may have to consider at that point whether it enriches its annual grant to again sort of offset the total tax costs that we expect to support here. Because I think the intention is to kind of offset the property tax costs with a donation, sort of a traded checks kind of thing, almost. And so I think there will be a challenge ahead because we'll see a new number from MPAC, but that's going to be a while down the road. In the interim, we could take action now to offset where we sit now and reconsider it at the appropriate time. But I see Treasurer Romani looking excited. So come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Perhaps maybe as far as the assessment goes, we don't know until it's actually constructed, different metrics of how it's evaluated, but the current property, overall taxes is $36,000. I think that's the 2023 taxes. If we're to say doubling, right, we're going to look in the $70,000 range at the additional facility. That's probably the easiest, number that we can kind of work with. And the municipal portion on the current property is around $16,000, so it'll be an additional $32,000. If that adds a little bit of context, again, it's not just going basis on what's currently there and multiplying by 2, right? So, but at least it gives you a little bit of context from a dollar's perspective.
And I would never hold anyone to numbers like that when they're arbitrary at best, when it hasn't even been built yet and guessing the numbers. It was just for an approximation. And don't get me wrong, Council, I'm totally on board with doing absolutely everything possible to make of benefit the health clinic, doctor recruitment, everything to come in, because it is a priority of this council and it's a priority of the community that it serves. It has to be done, and it has to be done yesterday. So that's what we're working towards. So I will support the motion as it's come forward, and I'm sure if any other details come forward, that they can be brought forward at any point in time and modified. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Through you. Thanks, Jessica, for your report. A lot of great comments and obviously a lot of great work in the community that's going on right now. The part I struggle with is just what Ashton touched on, is that we don't know that impact from MPAC. I think previous numbers I had seen, or saw I should say, said that MPAC's 5 years approximately behind in terms of their assessments. So that's going to be a substantial time horizon that we don't know those numbers. Obviously, in the 2024 budget, we did create that healthcare reserve fund, which I think was an important investment. And I guess my concern is that number is still, I think it's still low, personally. That's just my own thoughts. I'm sure there's some other people that can comment on that as well. But again, what we're doing in terms of getting doctors here, we need to do more work on that. We need to have more funds to do that. These things aren't cheap and they're not free. So again, I'm certainly in support of whatever we can do, but that's just the one piece that I struggle with, is that we don't know what that assessment piece is going to be for 5, 6, 7, possibly longer years. Thank you.
If I might, Councillor, I said, my own look at this is that this will come back to council again, right? A council at some point in the future, whether it's on our watch or the next one, will see the impact of the MPAC assessments and what that means for property tax for this place. And at that point in time, the council can say, okay, we're tapped out. The province should have done its part and we're good. Or they can say, we're still all in and let's pony up some more. So to me, I don't inherently see the problem, acknowledging that a future council, it could be this one, it could be the next, will have a look at this again and decide what to do. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Cullen?
Yes, last comment. So with regards to the 25,000 we have in reserves right now, so if we top that up to 65,000, when would that be available to them? Because I believe the team that is working on it need the funds right now.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as the recommendation is written in the report, we are recommending it could be addressed in the 2025 budget, but if council desires to change that, we could do so.
Okay. So that would represent a budget amendment if we decided that we had to act more urgently than this. And that takes a little bit of work. I'm looking at Mr. Romany, but budget amendments take a little bit of work. And there are a number of things that perhaps lie ahead on that front, but maybe we need to consider the possibilities, at least of a half year of support here. I don't know. Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just a couple points, just to follow up on the Deputy Mayor. So the $25,000 that's in the reserve in the current budget, would be delivered. Is that not available now?
Yes. Yeah, that would be delivered.
So,
yes.
So the point I think that was talked about is that if the hospital needs that now, can we not simply transfer that amount because it's in our budget?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we could do so. We could ask them to put forward maybe a letter outlining the request for that funds, and that could either be brought forward to council for approval, or staff could.
I appreciate that, and I think that addresses the first part of the piece in terms of a urgent need based on the Deputy Mayor and your involvement in the committee. But then in terms of the recommendation here, the additional piece, that gets us into if we do agree to an increased amount, that would get us into a budget amendment. Is that correct?
The current resolution states that that's the intent, to put the top up above what we've already committed into the 2025 budget process and proposal that will come forward in due course in 2025. So the answer, yes, is generally correct. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. And then my last point, if I may, is that now in the CEO's Ellis's comments, I fully expect that this council, as we talked about, will receive a presentation from the hospital regarding the expansion request and perhaps the 5% type request that they're suggesting at 515,000. Separate to and in addition above this. Okay. And that is their prerogative, and then it'll be our council's prerogative in terms of what we are able to do. Exactly. And any investment of that magnitude is significant and gets to the point which the committee brought to us in terms of and our ability as a municipality to be able to come up with funds that, frankly, not just this municipality should be doing, it should be our other partners as well, which we've talked about. So, enough said. Thank you.
Indeed. The province needs to come to the table on some of these prospects, don't they? But I think let's be narrow here. The intent is to suggest that we are good with the sort of transfer of checks, if you will. That's roughly what we're doing here with regards to supporting the physician recruitment effort. I think we've heard we want it sort of designated that way, and the resolution is fairly straightforward. It does designate that way, and that we know that there's some future decisions that may come, including, as you said, a capital request that, again, we can consider when it arrives at the table. Anyone else with questions or comments? So I think we've covered, I think the resolution does cover Deputy Mayor Cullum's concern. There is a designation here, but let's hear it and see if you're comfortable. As follows, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the report entitled Municipal Capital Facilities Agreement for Fisher Family Primary Care Center, dated May 27th, 2024, as information. And the council directs staff to bring forward an increased annual physician and healthcare recruitment donation in the 2025 municipal budget proposal. Now, the only thing I want to ask Ms. McLean about is we've got that $25,000 allocated in the current year, and it's sitting in our bank account, I assume. And we need a council resolution to release it to the purpose of the hospital, or will you bring something in due course on that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that would be our recommended approach as staff, that it was brought forward to council, but we can reach out to the hospital or level up to see what those immediate needs are, because we aren't aware of them at the current moment.
Because I think what council has done in practice is it's put the money aside, but it hasn't actually said you can release this money. So we will need a resolution, I think, to release the money for the purpose in the near future, if that's council's intent. And I suspect it is, looking at the faces and the nods around the table. So the resolution, I don't think we need to amend tonight, but I do think that we need to encourage staff to bring forward a resolution about releasing the reserve. Okay, can I call for a mover? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cullen. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Thank you. Any discussion or debate further on this resolution? I think we understand some of the nuances that lie ahead, the things that are coming. Anyone else with comments? All right, seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. And I think, a hat tip to staff and the discussions that have been happening amongst the stakeholders in this to come up with creative solutions. Mr. Romany, thank you for your involvement with that. I think this is a reasonable solution that helps us avoid opening up potentially a can of worms down the road. Okay. Let's turn our attention to item 9.4 on our agenda, reports from the Facilities Department. Poor Mr. Newell's had to wait through this long meeting, this hot meeting. I don't know if anyone else is warm, but I'm finding it a shade on the warm side in here. So let me introduce Mr. Newell. For item 9.4.1, Council is asked to award a contract for the supply of one new tractor with cab to Midwestern Equipment of listable in the amount of $35,000 plus HST. The item will find its home at the Kerr Memorial Complex. Actually, you know what? I'm going to give you a break. Does anyone have questions about this report? Anyone want to ask? He doesn't have to say a word. He can just stand there and look pretty. Okay. If there are no questions, let me read the resolution and let's move it along. So, as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for quote to Midwestern Equipment Listowel Limited for the total amount of $35,000, excluding HST, moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Thank you for looking pretty, Mr. Newell. Any questions, comments, discussion, debate? Seeing none, let's have a vote.
Now we're trying to pick up time.
And that is carried. We still love you. It's just we're moving things along. All right. Let's turn to 9.4.2. This one I'll let you speak to. We have what appears some good news and some spend news. It appears the dehumidifier in one of our arenas is in better shape than was once thought. And so we won't have that spend. But the team has found another spot for an alternative spend from that money on rubber flooring in 2 arenas instead of 1. One was projected budget, which warrants a project amendment. So, Mr. Newell, a few words.
That's correct. So we had 2 projects. One of them would be the dehumidifier at the Wallace Arena. And the second one was rubberized flooring at the Alma Logan Arena. We had $40,000 budgeted for each of those projects. When we got pricing through a tendering process for the one floor, it came in at slightly over $25,000. There's cost efficiencies by getting another arena done at the same time with the same company. The dehumidifier looks like we can last another year or 2 with the dehumidifier, so we're looking to reallocate the funds from the dehumidifier project to put towards the floor project. So that's $80,000 of budget money that would be available for that project, and we would come in right around $50,000. So it's still 2 projects completed, and we're well on our way for next year if we start looking at the dehumidifier.
Okay, that's the story. Any questions, comments? Can I just bring the resolution up here? As follows, the council, we do have one? Yes, sorry, let me get your microphone here, Councillor Anstett.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Thanks, Jeff, for your report. I was going back through the capital budget flip book, and I was just to confirm, this is all the rubber in both arenas, not just the dressing rooms, right?
That's correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
I have to own that I don't fully understand what that means, but thank you for being an expert on arena and rubber in arena. Okay, here's the resolution. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the reallocation of 2024 capital project 5422-24-012 FAC Wallace Dehumidifier approved budget to fund the rehabilitation of upgrades of rubber flooring at both Alma Logan Recreation Complex and Wallace Community Center, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards request for tender NP 023-24T supply and installation of sport rubber flooring, including provisional work to 924-1329 Canada Inc., Scarborough, Ontario, in the amount of $49,015, excluding HST. Moved by Councillor Johnston, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Mr. Newell is still with us. 9.4.3, Council is asked pursuant to a procurement process consistent with our bylaw to award the tender for the replacement and installation of new playground equipment in the Atwood Lions Park. It is proposed we award the contract to Park and Water Limited of Mono, Ontario, in the amount of $283,324.60 plus HST. Mr. Newell, you're up again.
Yes, so the Atwood Playground was approved in our budget for $300,000, so this came in under budget. This will be our 3rd playground structure of the year. We've had our Memorial Park one and also Wallace Optimus Park. And so this would be the 3rd one. Looking at a fall install of the playground. Once kids have gone back to school, that's the idea, is later in the fall we'll be able to get the work done at that point as to not interrupt people during the summer. So that's the plan. We're happy that it's come in under budget. So in a very creative design as well, with a lot of accessible features. So.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Newell. Questions, first comments? Can I just continue to express my astonishment at the price of playground equipment? It just blows my mind. I mean, could I build a garage for $283,324? Quite likely a really nice one. Councillor Duncan's nodding his head. Um, it just blows the mind.
But
Sorry.
there's more hours of recreation, free recreation entertainment in a playground than there is in a garage. So
I'm not sure I bet on that. Depends on how it's being used, the garage. I suspect. I see a few men around the table looking mildly uncomfortable. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Thanks for the report, Jeff. And I'm just wondering, just for council's benefit in future, if you could attach a concept plan or something that would show us what you would actually be getting for $283,000 plus.
Certainly.
And I think all we need to do is look at the play structures that have been installed, and obviously the one in Listowel Memorial Park is much more expensive than this. But that gives you the magnitude of what it is that is there. And as I said before, when I first was involved and had my eyes opened up, I thought $30,000 was a lot for a playground. This is 28 years ago, 27, pardon me, at Elma Township Public School. Things have changed substantially since that time. Parents are no longer involved allowed to be involved in the help defraying some of the costs. So that's we have full cost accountability for this, and the design standards are far more substantial than they ever were. So anyways, look forward to this.
We're also impressed that we've been able to, through council's help, be able to almost match fees for Atwood Playground to Memorial Park Playground, so that they're similar in scope. And so that's good.
Okay, thank you. I still hope that we erect a water slide somewhere, but I'm sure the price of that is ridiculous. So, all right. I have a resolution. I do. As follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth awards RFP NP-021-24P to Park and Water Limited, Mono, Ontario, for an amount of up to $283,324.60, excluding taxes. Moved by Councillor Andreessen, seconded by Councillor Rothwell. 30,000, huh? Inflation. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us past the staff reports to a few other little things. For item 10 on our agenda, are there any reports that councillors would like to ask of staff or of our committees? Looks like Councillor Richardson wants in on this one. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Just like staff to bring forward a report from the delegation that we had earlier from the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. I'd like to see if there's any possible way that, of which I'm quite certain and aware that other municipalities have done so as well, is that the way that our municipality can partner and possibly sponsor some piece of this. I don't really have a dollar figure right now. I'm sure that could be provided, but just to see if there's a way that could be done that possibly through programs. Obviously, I think Set 7 is done like as a learning educational thing, but also with possibility of circulation from the library budget. But I think it's important to do that as a municipality to try and support that in some way, because it is a significant goal that they're doing, but will have great results. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. I think we should assume that that's moved by Councillor Richardson that we direct staff to prepare a report on the possibility of some degree of municipal sponsorship for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Thank you. Discussion or debate? Clerk table with us. All right, let's have a vote. Councillor Anstead records a manual in favor vote. And we have all votes accounted for. That is carried. Thank you. Anyone else with reports or requests? Let's go to Councillor Duncan next.
Thank you. At the risk of dragging this any later, I just wondered if we can get an update. I know we had discussed it at one time about the community flagpole. I just wonder if we can get an update back from Jeff there about where we're at with that project. So I don't know if we need to.
Are you able to speak? Is staff able to speak to this tonight, or do you want time to bring back a report? Okay, so directing a report. Okay. So moved by Councillor Duncan that we direct staff to prepare a report on the progress that's been made towards a community flagpole. Who will second this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. All right. Any discussion or debate? I will say that I think, often these resolutions are intended to target a very specific flag flying at the Municipal Hall in the month of June. And I'm not sure that that's good public policy to target that flag, nor move it out to the periphery of the community. So I think staff should take note in preparing the report that there's a notion here that any or all flags are moved to the periphery of the community, and I'm not sure that that's our intent. So I just want my own opinion heard on that one at this occasion. But we have a resolution on the floor. Do you have it prepared? Okay, let's have that vote. Okay. Deputy Mayor Callan records a manual vote. Councillor Andreessen records a manual vote. Thank you. And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move forward. Unless there was another one. Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Go ahead.
Thank you through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. Through the Agricultural Excellence Strategy, there has been a development of a new Agricultural Economic Development Committee. And we currently have our own Economic Development Committee as well. But I would like to see a report from staff to look at the possibility of having an additional counselor on the Agricultural Excellence Economic Development Committee in order to help ensure that what's happening in both economic development committees is on the same page and working in tandem. So just thought if we could have a report on that, that'd be great.
Have you considered the possibility, and I'm just going to ask the question because I want to make sure I understand the intent, that any member of the North Perth Economic Development Advisory Committee could attend meetings of the Agricultural and Agribusiness Advisory Committee? They may not have a vote, but at least they can certainly be aware of what's going on. Have you thought about that?
If I may, I was just wondering, my concern around that is that there wouldn't be any ability to provide any kind of comments or vote or anything like that. So it's more of it's an information thing rather than, being able to comment. So.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that you had heard a thought on this. Ms. McLean, did you want to weigh in on this?
So there will be a staff report coming at the June 3rd council meeting related to this request.
Okay. So something is in motion already. That's great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else with requests of staff for reports or committees for reports? All right, let's turn to item 11. We do have an item of correspondence that warrants our review and action tonight. We have received a request from the Perth Municipal Association to augment our support of their work on a one-time basis. It would seem that post-pandemic, some costs have risen and a small sponsorship investment is requested from council and from other councils across Perth County to alleviate some deficit that was associated with their execution of excellent annual meetings in recent years. So we do have a resolution to that effect, I think. No resolution? Okay, so we need a resolution to that effect then, yes? We want to respond to them. I have a draft actually of something that could work here. That the municipality of North Perth supports the Perth Municipal Association by providing a one-time cost-corrective sponsorship of $300 for its ongoing work. Probably should have emailed that to you, but go ahead.
We can make sure that that wording is in the resolution.
Okay. So they're asking for $300 from each of the municipal councils. I haven't heard a report about whether other municipal councils in Perth County have already approved this, but it's available as a resolution per their request. Can I call for a mover? Leanne, Councillor Andreessen, thank you, and Councillor Richardson will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, with the magic of the wording, let's have a vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Tonight we have, as we turn to the next section, we have a couple of bylaws to look at. The enabling resolution outlines for each bylaw their number and purpose. Before I read the resolution for passing these bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or both of them, I suppose, for a more fulsome consideration or an individual or recorded vote? Okay, I'm not seeing that, so, oh, sorry, Councillor Nerdum. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if we are able to vote on these two separately?
We can, certainly, if that's the request, and will here. All right, so we have a request to pull these apart. Let's do that then. Why don't we consider the first resolution then as follows, that the following bylaw is hereby passed, 41-2024 being a bylaw to deem part of registered plan number 542 not to be a plan of subdivision. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan, thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? Okay, not seeing any discussion or debate. Clerks, have you got this figured out? All right, thank you. Let's have a vote then on that one. Okay, and that is carried. Thank you. And then let's turn to the second one then as follows, that the following bylaw is hereby passed, 42-2024, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 6-ZB-1999 as amended. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Duncan will be our seconder on this one. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, now we've seen how that works. We know we can pull things apart here. So thank you for putting it to the test, Councillor Nordum. All right, let's turn to item 13 on our agenda. Do any councillors wish leave to give notice of motion this evening? I'm not seeing any indication of same, so let's move to item 14 on our agenda. For item 14, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to the community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? And certainly, if we have anyone connected remotely still, and I'm not sure that we do, they could participate. So Councillor Andreessen is up first.
Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I'm excited to announce that we have a newer member of North Perth recently born on April 18th, and that's my granddaughter Quinn Andreessen. So we're excited to have her join our family, and everyone's doing well and happy and healthy. So.
Wonderful news. Thank you, Councillor Andreessen, for sharing that with us. And we're glad that mom and baby are well. Mm-hmm. Father too, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. That brings us next to item 15 on our agenda. We do not have any intention for a closed meeting of council this evening. That means that with regards to item 16, there is no report to bring forward since a closed session was not held. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I will now read the enabling resolution as follows: that bylaw 44-2024, being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth, is hereby passed. Moved by Councillor Blazek, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Councillor Duncan records an in favor manual vote. And with that, we have a unanimous agreement, and that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to the happy moment of our meeting when we can say that we completed the deliberation and done what we were asked to do, and thus it's appropriate for us to consider adjournment. I have a resolution to that effect as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 10:28 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, June 3rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Councillor Rothwell is our seconder. It's not debatable. Let's have that vote. And we're missing one. Who's? Oh, we're missing Councillor Richardson. Is that who it was? All right. We got this vote now, and we can declare that carried. Our next regular council meeting is Monday, June 3rd. Until that time, this council is adjourned.